Good evening, friends. Tonight we shall embark upon a leisurely and serene exploration into the profound depths of ancient Greek mythology and the tranquil annals of legendary history. It is highly recommended to dim your illumination, nestle comfortably beneath your chosen covering, and permit the cacophony of the day to gently recede into oblivion. At the outermost western periphery of the terrestrial sphere, precisely where the celestial orb of the sun descends to meet the earth at the conclusion of each diurnal cycle, stands a remarkable arbor, unparalleled in its kind. One might envision it in solitary grandeur upon an elevated landform, its boughs heavily laden with bounteous fruit that radiates a brilliant sheen, akin to captured solar luminescence. Yet, this magnificent tree is not unaccompanied. Encircled about its venerable trunk, with the stoic patience of an ancient stone monolith, reposes Ladon, a formidable dragon whose 100 vigilant eyes are perpetually unclosed, and whose rhythmic respiration has served as a silent chronometer for the passage of innumerable centuries. It is crucial to understand that Ladon does not embody the ferocious, avaricious, horde-guarding dragon archetype that permeates later narratives. He represents an entity of a more subdued, yet profoundly eternal nature. His dermal scales gleam with a muted, burnished bronze luster, meticulously polished by the incessant caress of countless years of prevailing winds and inclement weather. Each of his 100 ocular organs operates with independent motility, thereby producing a soft, mesmerizing visual cadence, reminiscent of stellar bodies materializing and vanishing in a languid, celestial ballet across the nocturnal firmament. Certain eyes maintain surveillance over the distant horizon. Others scrutinize the resplendent golden fruit above, while still others appear to direct their gaze inward, as though engaged in profound contemplation of concepts too abstruse for mortal comprehension. The sacred tree under his protection is the esteemed possession of Hera, the revered queen of the Olympian deities, and its fabled golden apples are reputed to bestow the gift of perpetual life upon those who partake of them. However, one will not observe Ladon engaged in restless perambulation or expelling fiery breath at potential interlopers. Instead, he has assimilated into a temporal rhythm as primordial as the very earth itself. His colossal physique gently ascends and descends with each inhalation and exhalation, producing a sound akin to the distant murmur of oceanic undulations. When the atmospheric currents stir the foliage overhead, he occasionally elevates his majestic head ever so slightly, as if heeding the intimate whisper of an ancient confidant. What profound ruminations occupy the mind of a dragon during the protracted, silent epochs of eternity? Perhaps he recollects the momentous day Hera first transported him to this hallowed locale, recalling how she addressed him not as a mere subordinate, but as a revered custodian of something inestimably precious. The golden apples transcended their identity as mere fruit. They epitomized hope itself, the solemn pledge that certain elements within this terrestrial realm possess the capacity for everlasting endurance. And Ladon, with his ancient wisdom, comprehended that his designated function was not to exhibit ferocity or inspire terror, but rather to exist as a steadfast, immutable, and unwavering presence. The verdant grounds encompassing the tree are meticulously tended by the Hesperides, the enchanting nymphs of the evening, whose melodious voices accompany their diligent labors. Their harmonious vocalizations intermingle with the profound sound of Ladon's respiration, collectively creating a soothing nocturne that has resonated within this sacred precinct since the very dawn of time. They navigate through the garden with the graceful fluidity of dancers, meticulously irrigating roots, judiciously pruning branches, and assiduously collecting fallen leaves. Occasionally, they pause to gently caress Ladon's warm, scaly integument, at which he emits a sound of profound contentment, a resonant rumble akin to distant thunder on a balmy summer evening. One might naturally ponder whether Ladon ever experiences solitude during his interminable vigil. However, the sensation of loneliness necessitates a perception of time's relentless progression. For Ladon, the temporal continuum unfolds in a fundamentally distinct manner. Each successive day seamlessly merges into the next, much like water seeking its natural equilibrium. The sun ascends, casting elongated, gilded rays through the apple-laden branches. It then climbs to its zenith, suffusing his bronze scales with warmth until they become almost incandescent to the touch. Subsequently, it descends, painting the celestial canvas in hues of rose and amber that perfectly complement the radiant fruit he so diligently guards. And throughout this perpetual cycle, Ladon maintains his watch with patient, unwavering eyes, his immutable presence as reliable and consistent as the cyclical progression of the seasons. The golden apples themselves appear to pulsate with an inherent, soft luminosity, particularly during the crepuscular hours just preceding dawn. Should one be privileged to observe them in close proximity, it would become evident that they are not perfectly spherical, unlike ordinary fruit. They possess a subtle elongation, with skin utterly devoid of blemishes, exhibiting no discernible indications of senescence or decay. When agitated by the movement of the wind, they produce a soft, harmonious chime as they gently collide with one another, a sound reminiscent of distant bells. Ladon has been privy to this ethereal music for such an extended duration that it has become an integral component of his very heartbeat, an intrinsic element of his respiration, and an inseparable part of his profound dreams. Indeed, even dragons are susceptible to the realm of dreams. In his slumber, Ladon occasionally experiences prophetic visions of heroic figures who will inevitably seek the coveted apples. These are not the violent brigands depicted in some tales, but rather individuals propelled by profound affection, by desperate exigency, by the intrinsically human yearning to safeguard that which holds the utmost significance. He perceives their visages prior to their arrival, recognizing their approaching footsteps upon the winding path that leads to his hallowed garden. And though his paramount duty is the vigilant protection of the apples, he experiences a sentiment akin to profound compassion for these intrepid seekers, comprehending their insatiable hunger for permanence in a transient world where all things ultimately succumb to oblivion. The most celebrated of these illustrious visitors was Heracles, the preeminent hero whose prodigious strength was rivaled only by the profound melancholy of his heart. When Heracles finally reached the sacred garden, his form covered in the dust of his arduous journey, Ladon exhibited no surprise. He had been presciently anticipating this precise moment for an eternity of years. The hero approached with measured steps, not with the expected bravado, but rather with the meticulous reverence of an individual who deeply comprehends the sanctity of hallowed grounds. Heracles did not engage Ladon in combat, contrary to the assertions of certain historical accounts. Instead, he reclined beneath the venerable tree for a period of 3 days and 3 nights, conversing in hushed tones with the ancient dragon about his monumental labors his profound regrets, and his fervent hope that by successfully executing these seemingly insurmountable tasks, he might ultimately attain a measure of inner tranquility. Ladon listened intently with his 100 perceptive eyes, and within those profound depths, Heracles discerned not the unthinking voracity of a savage beast, but rather the immense weariness of an immortal soul burdened by an everlasting duty. On the third night, precisely as the moon ascended to its celestial zenith, Ladon performed an unprecedented act. He simultaneously closed all 100 of his vigilant eyes and succumbed to a deep, profound slumber, thereby permitting Heracles to acquire the apples he so desperately required. This was neither a capitulation nor an act of deception. It was a profound acknowledgement. One venerable guardian recognizing another, one eternal mandate honoring another. Upon his departure, Heracles gently rested his hand upon Ladon's massive head, a gesture of profound gratitude that the ancient dragon cherishes to this very day. However, that momentous event transpired in the distant past. Heracles successfully completed his arduous labors and ultimately found his coveted peace. The resplendent golden apples were duly restored to their rightful place upon the tree, and Ladon steadfastly resumed his eternal vigil. The world beyond the sacred garden underwent myriad transformations, both subtle and dramatic in their scope. Empires ascended and subsequently crumbled. New deities garnered fervent worshippers, while ancient ones gradually faded into mere whispers of memory, and mortal beings devised innovative methodologies to quantify time, distance, and intrinsic worth. None of these external vicissitudes encroached upon the tranquil sanctity of the garden, where Ladon meticulously maintains his watch. Here, the immutable rhythm persists, the ethereal dawn light filtering through the golden foliage, the soft, melodious singing of the Hesperides as they attend to their eternal garden, the gentle whisper of the wind through immortal branches, and always the steady, profound respiration of the venerable dragon who oversees it all. His 100 eyes reflect the ever-changing light, his enduring presence serving as a solemn promise that certain elements endure, not through overwhelming force or cunning artifice, but through the simple, profound choice to remain perpetually faithful to that which holds the most profound significance. Should one be granted the privilege of visiting Ladon in the contemporary era, one would discover him precisely as he has always been, coiled majestically around the base of the golden tree, his scales radiating warmth from the sun's embrace, his myriad eyes observing with profound, patient wisdom. He might gently elevate his colossal head upon one's approach, not as a gesture of menace, but rather as a silent salutation, recognizing within the visitor another soul, relentlessly seeking something enduring in a perpetually transient world. And if one were to maintain an absolute silence, a profound stillness, one might discern within his rhythmic breathing the resonant echo of all narratives yet to be unveiled, all the quiet, unassuming guardians who diligently watch over the precious things we simply cannot bear to relinquish. What other patient custodians might we unearth within the serene recesses of ancient Greece? What other souls discovered profound meaning, not within grand, epic adventures, but within the consistent, rhythmic cadence of daily devotion? Long before legendary heroes such as Heracles traversed the terrestrial plane, before magnificent temples majestically rose upon hilltops and gleaming marble columns adorned the Mediterranean sun, The earliest inhabitants of Greece made a groundbreaking discovery that would irrevocably transform the world. They ascertained how to compel the earth to yield its hidden treasures, not through the arduous processes of mining or hunting, but through the patient, synergistic partnership between human hands and dormant seeds. This is the compelling narrative of those forgotten pioneers. The initial farmers who meticulously transformed wild grasses into resplendent golden wheat, who painstakingly transmuted scattered tribal communities into settled, cohesive societies, who ultimately taught humanity to place its unwavering trust in the promise of tomorrow's bountiful harvest. Envision the pristine landscape of ancient Greece as it existed approximately 8,000 years prior. Undulating hills adorned with wild herbs that diffused an exquisite fragrance upon every passing breeze. Expansive oak groves where acorns descended with the density of rain each autumn, and verdant meadows interspersed with wild barley and wheat that flourished wherever the wind had dispersed the ancestral seeds. The populace who inhabited this region during that epoch were primarily nomadic, conscientiously tracking game animals throughout the changing seasons, diligently gathering berries and nuts, perpetually existing at the capricious mercy of nature's unpredictable temperament. However, within a secluded valley not far from the future site of what would eventually become the illustrious city of Athens, a sagacious woman, whose name has unfortunately been lost to the annals of history, made a profound observation that fundamentally altered the course of human civilization. She noticed that wherever their nomadic tribe had established temporary encampments and subsequently departed, leaving behind the remnants of their communal meals, scattered grains, various fruit seeds, and discarded vegetable scraps, new, vigorous plants invariably sprouted and thrived in the subsequent growing season. This phenomenon was not an act of magic, although it must have initially appeared profoundly mystical. It was, in fact, the Earth's inherent mechanism of responding to human partnership, marking the nascent beginnings of agriculture's ancient and enduring dialogue between deliberate intention and hopeful expectation. Her name might very well have been Melissa, a term signifying bee in the ancient Greek lexicon, for she exhibited an innate inclination towards the industrious tasks of gathering and meticulous storage, much like her namesake insects. Each successive morning, she would embark upon a purposeful stroll through the areas where her people had previously encamped in preceding years, diligently scrutinizing the self-seeded volunteer plants that flourished there. Through this meticulous observation, she acquired the profound knowledge to identify the robust stalks that yielded the most abundant grain, the resilient vines that bore the sweetest and most succulent fruit, and the nourishing roots that meticulously stored the greatest reserves of sustenance throughout the arduous, lean months of winter. The scarcity that often characterized the lean winter months was a persistent challenge. Melissa's profound realization, however, did not manifest as a sudden, earth-shattering event or a flash of divine insight. Rather, her groundbreaking understanding emerged from an accumulation of innumerable minor observations, meticulous, unhurried experiments, and an unwavering commitment to patient vigilance. She initiated a practice of intentionally dispersing seeds in specific locales where she anticipated her return. With diligent effort, she meticulously prepared modest areas of earth, meticulously extracting undesirable weeds and cumbersome stones to afford her selected botanical specimens ample space for flourishing. Through this dedicated engagement, she cultivated an acute sensitivity learning to decipher the nuanced indicators signaling the optimal condition of the soil for cultivation, the precise moment young plants required hydration, and when the grain had reached its peak, readiness for gathering. Her fellow tribal members observed these novel horticultural endeavors with an intricate blend of intrigued fascination and profound doubt. They pondered the rationale behind dedicating such considerable effort to nurturing flora in a fixed location when the untamed wilderness naturally supplied an ample array of sustenance. They questioned the wisdom of remaining tethered to a singular valley when their cherished liberty was intrinsically linked to pursuing the migratory patterns of animal herds across vast territories. Nevertheless, Melissa possessed a foresight that eluded their immediate comprehension. She had envisioned the profound potential for sustained plenty, for an unprecedented level of communal stability, and for settlements capable of expanding far beyond the demographic limitations imposed by a purely hunting and gathering subsistence strategy. The initial, tangible triumph in her agricultural pursuits materialized with emmer wheat, a venerable grain species indigenous to the expansive local topography. In stark contrast to contemporary wheat varieties, which yield generously plump and readily separable kernels, emmer presented a formidable and tenacious character. Its individual grains adhered tenaciously within their protective husks, necessitating an exacting and labor-intensive preparation to render them palatable. Yet this ancient cereal also exhibited remarkable resilience, demonstrating an impressive capacity to flourish even in impoverished soils and amidst capricious climatic conditions. Melissa diligently immersed herself in understanding its inherent cycles, discerning its preference for sun-drenched, well-drained hillsides and a strategic autumn sowing. With each successive harvest, she meticulously preserved the most robust seeds, incrementally cultivating more vigorous and bountiful cultivars over time. The sheer arduousness of these endeavors surpassed anyone's initial estimations. The painstaking process of clearing land involved interminable stretches of toil with rudimentary implements, encompassing the strenuous extraction of stubborn tree stumps, the laborious relocation of heavy stones, and the relentless breaking apart of compacted, unyielding soil. Sowing the seeds demanded an exacting vigilance, necessitating a keen awareness of fluctuating meteorological patterns, the specific characteristics of the earth, and the finely tuned temporal precision that invariably delineated the boundary between a prolific yield and utter crop failure. Weeding, an unrelenting chore throughout the entire growing period, represented a deliberate, painstaking regimen of safeguarding the cultivated plants while systematically eradicating their encroaching rivals. Furthermore, the harvest itself presented a distinct set of formidable obstacles: the laborious hand-cutting of the ripe grain, the arduous threshing process to dislodge the precious seeds from their stalks, and the final meticulous winnowing to purify the kernels by separating them from unwanted chaff and detritus. Yet the eventual recompense, once realized, proved nothing short of phenomenal. For the inaugural occasion within living memory, Melissa's community possessed an unprecedented abundance of provisions, a quantity significantly exceeding their immediate consumption requirements for a single agricultural cycle. They assimilated the critical skill of preserving grain within hermetically sealed ceramic vessels, thereby safeguarding it from the detrimental effects of dampness and the depredations of vermin. They also ascertained that specific foodstuffs could be desiccated, subjected to fermentation, or otherwise treated in innovative manners that dramatically prolonged their edibility and utility far beyond the conventional harvest period. Consequently, winter, historically a season synonymous with pervasive scarcity and profound apprehension, was transformed into simply another segment of the year to be navigated with satisfied appetites and tranquil dispositions. As news of these remarkable achievements propagated, disseminating throughout neighboring territories, other distinct tribal groups commenced their own forays into agricultural experimentation. Each individual collective ingeniously customized the fundamental tenets of cultivation to align with their particular ecological settings and specific requirements. Along the maritime fringes, for instance, inhabitants mastered the art of cultivating vegetables uniquely suited to thriving in sandy substrates and saline atmospheric conditions. Within the rugged mountainous territories, communities engineered sophisticated terrace fields, cleverly leveraging precipitous inclines and harnessing the sporadic seasonal precipitation. In proximity to vital rivers and flowing streams, they meticulously engineered intricate irrigation networks, thereby conveying life-giving water to tracts of land previously deemed infertile and barren. The societal transformations that unfolded in conjunction with the adoption of agriculture proved no less monumental than the accompanying technological advancements. Once human populations were liberated from the incessant necessity of relocating in pursuit of sustenance, they could dedicate invaluable time and substantial effort to the construction of enduring habitations. Substantial, fixed houses supplanted fleeting, temporary shelters, evolving into the very nuclei of familial existence and serving as secure repositories for accumulated personal effects and valuable heirlooms. Settlements burgeoned organically around the most fertile agricultural lands, fostering the emergence of communities sufficiently vast to sustain a diverse array of specialized artisans, skilled potters to fashion essential storage containers, ingenious toolmakers to forge superior plows and sharp sickles, and adept weavers to fabricate garments from resilient plant fibers. Offspring nurtured within these foundational agrarian societies developed an intrinsically distinct perception of temporality and locality compared to their peripatetic forebears. They assimilated the unhurried cyclical cadences inherent to an agricultural existence, the serene, hushed interlude of the winter months when nascent seeds reposed inertly within the frigid earth, the invigorating anticipation accompanying spring's planting, the apprehensive vigilance maintained throughout the summer as nascent crops progressed towards their full development, and the profoundly satisfying weariness that marked the culmination of the harvest. These individuals cultivated what can aptly be termed agrarian sagacity, an intricate and deeply personal comprehension of meteorological variations, diverse soil compositions, botanical ailments, and the myriad other variables that ultimately dictated the prosperity or failure of their farming endeavors. Concurrently, spiritual observances underwent a parallel evolution, intricately linked with the progression of agriculture. As communities endeavored to fathom and subsequently influence the enigmatic powers that dictated the fate of their cultivated plants, they commenced perceiving manifestations of the divine within the predictable seasonal rotations. This led to the establishment of elaborate rites specifically designed to guarantee propitious meteorological conditions, rich, productive earth, and generous harvests. Demeter, revered as the patroness of cereals and cultivation, ascended to a position of paramount significance within the expansive Greek pantheon, embodying not merely the munificence of the terrestrial realm, but also the hallowed collaboration between human industry and the inherent dynamism of natural phenomena. The implements utilized by these pioneering agriculturalists, while fundamentally uncomplicated, proved remarkably efficacious. Sturdy wooden plows, harnessed to the powerful draft of oxen, fractured and turned the soil with considerably greater efficacy than could be achieved through manual tools alone. Sharp bronze sickles facilitated a swifter and more comprehensive collection of the harvest. Robust clay receptacles offered an impregnable sanctuary for the preservation of vital seeds and harvested grain. Furthermore, durable stone querns meticulously pulverized grain into fine flour, which could then be transformed into bread, a dietary staple renowned for its portability, nutritional value, and extended shelf life. Each successive one of these ingenious advancements epitomized the culmination of generations of meticulous trial and error and continuous amelioration, as cultivators progressively engineered more sophisticated methods for interacting harmoniously with the earth. Yet, arguably, the most crucial instrument cultivated by these nascent agriculturists was the very virtue of patience itself. In stark contrast to the pursuit of hunting, which could yield instantaneous outcomes for individuals possessing sufficient prowess and good fortune, farming unequivocally demanded an unwavering conviction in the principle of deferred recompense. Seeds carefully sown in the vitality of spring might not be gathered until the mellow arrival of autumn. Fruit-bearing trees, once established, could potentially remain unproductive for a span of several years subsequent to their initial planting. Enhancements to the soil's fertility might require many decades to manifest their complete beneficial impact. This profound shift towards long-term strategic foresight irrevocably altered not merely the methods by which human beings sustain themselves, but also fundamentally reshaped their conceptualization of their intrinsic position within the grand tapestry of existence. By the epoch when classical Greek civilization attained its zenith, the progeny of these pioneering cultivators had successfully engineered an intricate agricultural apparatus capable of sustaining populations numbering in the millions. They had meticulously devised sophisticated crop rotation methodologies that vigilantly preserved the fecundity of the soil, established discerning selective breeding initiatives that progressively enhanced both botanical species and livestock, and forged expansive trade conduits that facilitated the widespread dissemination of surplus foodstuffs throughout the entire Mediterranean basin. Nevertheless, the bedrock upon which this entire edifice rested remained the painstaking observations and meticulous trials undertaken by visionary individuals, akin to Melissa, those who perceived inherent promise within untamed flora, who were prepared to dedicate their invaluable time and vigor to endeavors with uncertain prospects, and who held an unwavering conviction that the earth would reciprocate their diligent stewardship with bounteous yields. Even in the contemporary era, characterized by highly mechanized agricultural practices and sophisticated scientific plant hybridization, the fundamental symbiotic rapport between the cultivator and the land endures without alteration. An individual must still diligently monitor atmospheric conditions, assiduously nurture the soil, and render the myriad nuanced judgments that ultimately dictate the prosperity or demise of the crops. The lineal inheritors of those inaugural Greek agriculturists persist in their labors across cultivated fields globally, perpetuating an uninterrupted legacy of collaborative engagement with the terrestrial sphere that commenced with a woman named Melissa, who first discerned the astonishing potential for dispersed seeds to transform into prolific bounties. Beyond the agricultural revolution, one might ponder what other subtle yet transformative innovations profoundly influenced the quotidian existence of the ancient Greeks, which skilled craftspeople and dedicated artisans painstakingly constructed the very bedrock of civilization through their unwavering commitment to their vocations. In the imposing shadow of Acrocorinth, where the nascent rays of dawn first illuminate the bustling workshops that delineate the venerable city thoroughfares, Nicias commences his daily regimen, mirroring the practices of his paternal ancestors and their forefathers before them. The pottery wheel revolves rhythmically beneath his meticulously attentive hands, and malleable, moist clay gracefully ascends, assuming forms destined to transport wine across the expansive Mediterranean, to contain precious olive oil for sacred temple luminaries, and to safeguard essential grain throughout yet another winter season. However, Nicias, engrossed in his meticulous artistry, is not contemplating extensive trade networks or the intricacies of commerce. Instead, he is attuned to the very essence of the clay, discerning the precise juncture when it is prepared to fulfill its inherent purpose. Corinthian ceramic artistry enjoys widespread acclaim across the entire ancient world, celebrated not for its monumental scale or imposing magnificence, but rather for its impeccable geometric harmony, its exquisitely intricate painted motifs, and the intrinsic manner in which it appears to encapsulate a quintessential aspect of Hellenic culture. Every individual artifact originates from clay, meticulously extracted from particular hillsides encircling the urban center. Earth that has been imbued with the benevolent influence of centuries of Mediterranean precipitation and solar radiance. The master potters possess an encyclopedic familiarity with every geological deposit, capable of precisely identifying which elevated terrain yields clay that, upon firing, achieves a rich, warm terracotta hue, and which secluded valley provides the exquisitely fine, supple substance ideally suited for elaborate decorative painting. The meticulous endeavor commences well before the break of dawn, during the tranquil hours when the ambient atmosphere is refreshingly cool and utterly still. Nicias, accompanied by his diligent apprentices, undertakes the crucial task of preparing the raw clay, meticulously kneading it with a rhythmic motion akin to working bread dough, a process designed to meticulously expel any latent air bubbles that could potentially instigate fissures during the subsequent firing. This specialized technique, known as wedging, demands both unflagging perseverance and considerable physical exertion. The clay necessitates continuous manipulation until it achieves an absolutely homogeneous consistency, becoming exquisitely pliable and utterly responsive to the potter's sensitive touch, neither excessively yielding nor unduly rigid. A truly accomplished master potter possesses the innate ability to discern the clay's optimal readiness purely through tactile sensation, the precise manner in which it conforms to applied pressure, and the faint, intrinsic warmth that subtly emanates as it is meticulously worked. In the ancient workshop, the master potter Nicias engages in a deep, almost spiritual communion with his craft as he sits at the wheel. His feet maintain a rhythmic motion on the pedal, ensuring the heavy stone disc spins consistently, while his practiced hands coax the pliable clay upwards, molding it into an array of familiar and functional forms. These include the elegant amphorae designed for storing and transporting wine, the broad craters used for blending beverages during lively symposiums, the practical small cups for everyday consumption, and the ornate ceremonial vessels dedicated to various religious festivals. Each of these distinctive shapes represents the culmination of generations of meticulous refinement, with proportions tirelessly adjusted and readjusted until they embody that quintessential harmony of aesthetic beauty and practical utility, a hallmark of authentic Greek artistry. The seemingly effortless act of throwing clay, when performed by a virtuoso like Nikolas, belies the extensive years of dedicated practice required to truly master the technique. Applying too much pressure inevitably leads to the inward collapse of the vessel's delicate walls, whereas insufficient pressure results in thick, ungainly forms. The true knack lies in acutely interpreting the clay's subtle responses, comprehending its inherent desire to move and flow, and collaborating with its natural characteristics rather than attempting to force it into submission. Nikolas frequently works with his eyes closed, relying solely on his acute sense of touch to guide the clay toward its predetermined shape. Once the fundamental form is established, the subsequent stage of artistic embellishment commences. While the clay retains a slight dampness, but possesses sufficient firmness for handling, the specialized decorative painters assume their roles. These individuals are artisans in their own right, possessing distinct and formidable skills. These accomplished artists, having dedicated decades to perfecting the intricate art of depicting narratives, myths, and legends, scenes from daily life, intense athletic competitions, and solemn religious ceremonies, utilize fine brushes meticulously crafted from animal hair. Their medium is slip, a liquid clay precisely refined to a smooth, flowing consistency that nonetheless resists running or blurring. The painting methodologies employed are characterized by a precision rivaling any other specialized craft. The process typically begins with a light, preliminary outline, delicately sketched with a thin brush. Subsequently, the primary colors are carefully filled in, most commonly featuring striking black figures silhouetted against the inherent red-orange hue of the fired clay, or, in later stylistic developments, vibrant red figures set against a deep black background. The painters must execute their work with both swiftness and unwavering precision, as errors are not easily rectified once committed. Every brushstroke must be imbued with confidence and certainty, each contributing harmoniously to designs destined for permanent preservation through the firing process. The kiln firing itself is arguably the most suspenseful and anxiety-inducing phase of the entire pottery-making endeavor. All the preceding weeks of painstaking labor, from the careful preparation of the clay and the meticulous shaping of vessels to the intricate application of painted decorations and the patient waiting for proper drying, culminate in the critical 3 days and nights during which the pottery resides within heated chambers. These chambers are sustained by fires that demand an extraordinarily precise temperature regulation. Excessive heat risks warping or cracking the delicate pieces, while insufficient heat prevents the development of the rich, lustrous colors and the hard, durable finish that render Corinthian pottery so highly esteemed. Nikolas has cultivated an intuitive ability to interpret the behavior of the fire, much like a seasoned farmer discerning weather patterns. The nuanced coloration of the flames offers vital clues regarding the internal temperature. The distinct sounds emitted by the burning wood indicate the remaining moisture content within the fuel source. Furthermore, the aroma of the smoke reveals whether the fire is burning cleanly or if adjustments are required. He manages to snatch only brief intervals of sleep during firing days, diligently inspecting the kilns every few hours, adding wood, fine-tuning the airflow, and making the myriad of minor corrections that ultimately determine the difference between triumphant success and disheartening failure. The pottery workshop is a realm of profound, quiet concentration, occasionally punctuated by bursts of focused activity. During the throwing sessions, an almost palpable sense of collective attention converges on the wheels, with the only audible sounds being the gentle whirring of the spinning clay and the soft, rhythmic splash of water used to keep both hands and clay suitably moist. During the painting phase, the atmosphere becomes even more hushed and introspective as the artists immerse themselves in the intricate task of creating scenes intended to be admired for centuries. However, during the intense firing period, the workshop vibrates with a nervous energy as everyone anxiously awaits the outcome, hoping their meticulous work has successfully endured the arduous ordeal of the flames. When the kilns finally cool and the moment arrives for unloading, a palpable mixture of exhilaration and apprehension invariably pervades the air. Some pieces emerge precisely as envisioned, their colors radiating brilliance, their forms flawlessly proportioned, and their intricate decorations remarkably crisp and clear. Others exhibit subtle variations, intrinsic to natural firing processes, slight deviations in color, unique patterns within the glaze, or minor imperfections that, paradoxically, imbue each piece with an even greater sense of individuality and preciousness. Occasionally, despite all diligent precautions, losses are incurred, pieces that succumb to cracking from thermal stress, decorations that failed to fire correctly, or forms that warped beyond any practical use. Yet, failure is an inherent and indispensable component of the learning trajectory in any craft, and pottery, above all other virtues, instills profound patience. Nikias has learned to embrace both triumphs and setbacks as invaluable teachers, meticulously scrutinizing each outcome to comprehend what transpired correctly or incorrectly, how techniques might be further refined, and how the enigmatic alchemy of clay, fire, and human ingenuity might be more fully mastered. He preserves broken pieces not as stark reminders of past failures, but rather as instructive textbooks, examining them to gain a deeper understanding of the past understanding of how clay behaves under a diverse range of conditions. The completed pottery embarks from the workshop to commence its actual existence in the wider world. Wine vessels, for instance, would traverse the seas on merchant ships, conveying not merely their liquid cargo, but also news, local gossip, and rich cultural influences to distant, far-flung ports. Ceremonial vessels would assume their esteemed places within temples, reverently holding offerings dedicated to the gods and actively participating in sacred rituals that forge profound connections between communities and their ancestral spiritual traditions. Daily use pottery would populate homes throughout the expansive Mediterranean region, transforming mundane activities such as eating and drinking into more aesthetically pleasing experiences, intimately linked to the artistic heritage that profoundly defines Greek civilization. However, for Nikias and his dedicated fellow potters, the most significant audience remains local. The neighbors who frequent the workshop to purchase essential oil lamps for their dwellings, sturdy water jugs for their wells, and elegant cups for their dining tables. These discerning customers possess an intimate familiarity with pottery and are adept at appreciating the subtle distinctions that elevate superior craftsmanship above merely adequate production. They fully understand that a meticulously crafted pot will provide faithful service for many decades, that beautiful decorations infuse daily tasks with greater pleasure, and that supporting local craftspeople actively contributes to the preservation of the cherished traditions that make their community truly unique. As evening descends and the last potter's wheel gradually ceases its spinning, Nikias cleans his tools with the same meticulous care and precision he employs when shaping clay. Each implement possesses its specific purpose, its prescribed method of maintenance, and its vital role within the intricate process that transmutes humble earth into exquisite art. Tomorrow, he will recommence his work, facing new clay, new challenges, and fresh opportunities to engage in the ancient, enduring dialogue between human creativity and the fundamental materials of the natural world. Beyond the realm of pottery, countless other artisans found profound meaning in this patient and transformative process of converting raw materials into objects of both beauty and utility. Just as the Corinthian potters expertly fashioned clay into vessels that served as conduits for civilization across the seas, the skilled shipwrights of Athens meticulously shaped wood into the very vessels themselves. In the expansive naval yards of Piraeus, where the rhythmic sound of hammering resonates from the break of dawn until dusk, Alexandros, a master shipwright, runs his weathered hands along a piece of seasoned oak, discerning its intricate grain, which will guide him in understanding its optimal use. Some select pieces are destined to become keels, forming the robust backbone of ships that will transport merchants and warriors across the shimmering, wine-dark sea. Other timbers will be skillfully shaped into ribs, imparting structural integrity and form to the vessels. Still others will be artfully carved into the elegant, sweeping curves of prows that slice through ocean waves with the fluid grace of dolphins. The elaborate process of shipbuilding commences not within the bustling harbors, but deep within the forests, where trees are carefully chosen and felled according to a vast body of knowledge meticulously transmitted across generations. Oak is selected for its inherent strength, pine for its desirable lightness, and cedar for its remarkable resistance to decay and insects. Each distinct type of wood possesses its appropriate application, its ideal duration for seasoning, and its unique set of challenges and advantages. Alexandros learned early in his rigorous apprenticeship that comprehending wood is akin to understanding people. Each piece exhibits its own distinct character, its particular manner of responding to stress, and its individual preferences for how it desires to be worked. The seasoning of timber represents perhaps the most demanding and patience-testing aspect of shipbuilding. Freshly cut wood contains an excessive amount of moisture, rendering it unsuitable for immediate use. It must be meticulously stacked with ample spaces for air circulation, carefully protected from rain but not entirely shielded from all weather elements, and then left to dry for periods ranging from several months to even several years. Unseasoned wood, known as greenwood, might warp or crack as it dries, thereby nullifying months of diligent preparation. However, properly seasoned timber achieves stability and predictability, becoming perfectly primed to assume its place in constructions that must steadfastly endure the relentless stresses of wind and waves. The sophisticated design of ships represents a delicate balance between competing demands, a challenge that would test the ingenuity of any engineer. They must possess sufficient strength to withstand violent storms, yet remain light enough to navigate efficiently through water. They must be capacious enough to transport substantial cargo, yet compact enough to be skillfully maneuvered within confined harbors. Furthermore, they must be adequately watertight to repel the sea, yet sufficiently flexible to bend harmoniously with waves without succumbing to breakage. Each design decision profoundly influences all subsequent choices, creating intricate puzzles that shipwrights resolve through a combination of extensive experience, intuitive insight, and meticulous observation of what demonstrably works. Alexandros specializes in the construction of merchant vessels, the indefatigable workhorses of Mediterranean commerce that transport a diverse array of goods, from grain and wine to pottery and olive oil, between distant ports. While these ships may lack the dramatic flair of warships, with their formidable bronze rams and multiple banks of oars, they embody something equally, if not more, significant: the enduring and patient commercial relationships that intricately bind the Greek world together. A meticulously constructed merchant ship might serve faithfully for many decades, undertaking hundreds of voyages, carrying thousands of tons of precious cargo, and thereby supporting the livelihoods of countless traders, sailors, and everyone else, whose existence depends on the vital flow of seaborne commerce. The prosperity of any maritime nation, such as ancient Greece, was inextricably linked to the vitality of its seaborne commerce. This reliance on the sea necessitated a highly developed shipbuilding industry, a craft steeped in tradition and meticulous execution. The construction of a vessel commenced with rituals as ancient as the very act of carving wood into a seaworthy form. The initial step involved the laying of the keel, a singular, immense timber destined to serve as the ship's fundamental structural element. This pivotal component demanded absolute straightness, meticulously selected from the grandest and most impeccable tree available, subsequently undergoing years of careful seasoning to achieve optimal stability and resilience. The keel-laying ceremony invariably drew the presence of the ship's prospective proprietor, often accompanied by propitiatory offerings to Poseidon and fervent supplications for secure voyages. Once this foundational piece was positioned, the essential character of the ship was irreversibly established. Progressing frame by frame, the skeletal framework of the vessel gradually assumed its distinctive contours. Each individual rib required painstaking shaping to impart the precise curvature that would dictate the ship's hydrodynamic performance. An excessively sharp form, while adept at cleaving through waves, would severely limit cargo capacity. Conversely, an overly blunt design would confer stability but impede speed. Tial, the master shipwright, a figure of profound experience, rendered these critical determinations based on the ship's designated function, the specific preferences articulated by its owner, and a lifetime of observing how various hull configurations behaved under diverse marine conditions. The subsequent planking phase represented the apogee of skilled craftsmanship, as each board had to be flawlessly integrated with its counterparts, culminating in a hull renowned for both its inherent strength and its impenetrable watertight integrity. The planks were secured using robust bronze nails and sturdy wooden dowels, subsequently sealed with a potent amalgam of tar and oakum, a fibrous material derived from discarded ropes that possessed the remarkable property of expanding when moistened, thereby creating joints that paradoxically tightened upon immersion in water. This venerable technology proved astonishingly efficacious. Expertly constructed wooden ships possessed the capacity to remain watertight for many decades, provided they received diligent maintenance. Within the expansive confines of the hull, meticulous consideration was afforded to both efficient cargo management and the comfort of the seafaring crew. Merchant vessels mandated capacious, unencumbered holds where diverse commodities could be stowed securely and accessed with ease. They also necessitated freshwater reservoirs designed to preclude contamination during protracted voyages. Furthermore, provisions for crew sleeping quarters, cooking facilities engineered to avert the peril of onboard fires, and ample storage for provisions and equipment essential for weeks at sea were indispensable. Every minute detail demanded exhaustive planning, for errors unearthed subsequent to the ship's launch invariably proved both financially burdensome and exceedingly arduous to rectify. The momentous launching of a newly built ship was consistently a cause for widespread celebration, yet it simultaneously represented a palpable moment of apprehension for every individual implicated in its painstaking construction. The culmination of months of diligent labor, all the consequential decisions pertaining to materials and construction methodologies, and the collective prayers and aspirations invested in the ambitious undertaking converged upon the instant the ship first embraced the water. Would it achieve the anticipated buoyancy? Would its handling prove satisfactory? Would it ultimately justify the substantial investment of both time and precious resources? While the vast majority of ships performed precisely as expected, there were always minor unforeseen occurrences, necessitating subtle adjustments and yielding invaluable lessons for subsequent projects. Once afloat, the ship embarked upon its true operational life, yet Alexandros's profound connection to it persisted. Wooden ships, by their very nature, demanded incessant maintenance. Hulls periodically required thorough cleaning and resealing. Rigging systems necessitated regular replacement. Violent storms frequently inflicted damage that mandated immediate repair. Consequently, ships routinely returned to the very yards where they had been conceived and constructed, bearing tales of far-flung ports, tangible evidence of the efficacy of the construction techniques employed, and insightful suggestions for enhancements in future vessels. These returning ships were akin to adult progeny revisiting their progenitors, bringing tidings of the wider world while remaining intrinsically linked to their origins. The shipyard itself functioned as a distinct community nestled within the broader societal fabric of Piraeus. Master shipwrights collaborated seamlessly with skilled sailmakers, expert rope manufacturers, diligent bronzesmiths who fabricated nails and various fittings, and talented carvers who sculpted the elaborate decorative figures adorning ships' prows. Each specialized craft mutually supported the others, fostering an intricate network of specialized proficiencies that rendered the vibrant maritime economy feasible. Young men matured within this dynamic milieu, acquiring not merely their own specific trades, but also gaining comprehensive familiarity with every facet of ship construction and ongoing maintenance. The profound economic significance of shipping conferred upon shipwrights a considerable degree of respect within Athenian society. Their unparalleled skills were absolutely vital to the city's overarching prosperity. Their tangible work was conspicuously evident in every bustling harbor. Their meticulous craftsmanship was rigorously tested each time their magnificent ships confronted the formidable challenges posed by unpredictable winds and tempestuous waves. Nevertheless, akin to all genuine artisans, their most profound gratification stemmed not from external accolades, but from the intrinsic satisfaction inherent in the work itself, in the tactile sensation of flawlessly fitted joints, the captivating spectacle of graceful curves progressively emerging beneath their dexterous hands, and the deep-seated knowledge that their extraordinary creations would safely transport both people and precious commodities across perilous expanses of water. As the day gradually waned and the evening drew near, signaling the conclusion of the day's arduous labor, Alexandros embarked upon a reflective stroll through the bustling shipyard. Meticulously inspecting projects at various stages of completion, here, a keel had just been ceremoniously laid for a grand vessel that would not see completion for many months. There, another ship approached its final stages, awaiting only its ultimate protective coating of tar and the meticulous installation of its intricate rigging. Each individual ship embodied hundreds of critical decisions, thousands of precise cuts and intricate fittings, and countless hours of patient, dedicated labor. Yet they also symbolized something more profound: vital connections between geographically distant locales, abundant opportunities for lucrative trade and enriching cultural exchange, and the enduring human imperative to explore and embark upon adventures, a primal drive that had perpetually drawn humanity to the boundless sea. Beyond the shipwrights, a multitude of other skilled craftspeople contributed their diligent expertise to the foundational infrastructure that underpinned Greek civilization. High upon the majestic slopes of Mount Parnassus, where formidable eagles soared and the air grew perceptibly thinner, the persistent sound of chisel against stone had resonated for countless centuries. However, these were not the dramatic reverberations of sculptors fashioning artistic masterpieces or architects erecting magnificent temples. Rather, they were the patient, rhythmic percussions of stonecutters, meticulously preparing the foundation blocks, the robust wallstones, and the myriad pieces of precisely cut masonry that rendered possible the architectural marvels for which ancient Greece justly earned its renown. Demetrios, a seasoned stonecutter, wiped beads of perspiration from his brow and carefully scrutinized the substantial block he had been assiduously shaping since the first glimmer of dawn, meticulously verifying its dimensions against the wooden template suspended from his belt. The revered oracle at Delphi attracted pilgrims from every corner of the known world, yet remarkably few visitors paused to contemplate the very stones beneath their feet as they ascended the sacred way toward Apollo's resplendent temple. Each individual block had been painstakingly cut by hand, meticulously shaped to achieve a perfect fit with its adjacent counterparts, and finished to exacting tolerances measured in minute fractions of an inch. The demanding work undeniably required immense physical strength, but more significantly, it demanded unyielding patience, unwavering precision, and an intimate, almost intuitive comprehension of stone itself, its inherent fracture patterns, its resistance to weathering, and how different geological types reacted to various tools and techniques. Demetrios had assiduously acquired his formidable craft from his esteemed uncle, who in turn had learned from his venerable grandfather, forming an unbroken lineage of specialized knowledge stretching back to the earliest Greeks, who first discovered that local limestone could be efficiently quarried and skillfully shaped into robust building blocks. The fundamental techniques had undergone minimal alteration across the generations. The essential tools remained bronze chisels and sturdy iron hammers, wooden wedges, and resilient rope hoists. However, the profound understanding of stone, the subtle, nuanced judgments concerning its grain and hardness, and the detection of invisible flaws that could either guarantee or jeopardize a block's integrity, This invaluable knowledge deepened exponentially with each passing year of practical experience. The arduous quarrying process commenced with an astute interpretation of the extant stone formation, comprehending how the rock had been deposited in primeval seas, discerning the natural fracture lines, and identifying which specific areas would yield the most superior building material. Demetrios possessed the extraordinary ability to traverse a quarry and accurately pinpoint locations where the stone would be impeccably suited for intricate carving, areas where it was appropriate solely for rougher applications, and places where concealed imperfections rendered it entirely unsuitable for construction purposes. This profound knowledge was the direct result of handling thousands of blocks, observing their behavior under various stresses, and learning to recognize the subtle indicators that predicted either success or failure. Extracting colossal blocks from the living rock necessitated techniques that frequently appeared almost magical to uninitiated outsiders. Holes were meticulously drilled in precise patterns along the predetermined break lines. Subsequently, wooden wedges were carefully inserted and thoroughly saturated with water. As the wood slowly expanded, it generated immense pressure, causing the stone to split along predictable paths. The process was inherently slow but unfailingly reliable, producing remarkably clean breaks with minimal waste. Conversely, rushing the intricate work or attempting to extract blocks with undue haste invariably resulted in undesirable fractures that ruined valuable material. Once successfully extracted, each individual block had to be painstakingly shaped to its ultimate dimensions, using hand tools that had undergone remarkably little change since the Bronze Age. The initial rough shaping was accomplished with heavy hammers and broad chisels, systematically knocking off larger pieces and establishing the fundamental form. This was followed by the meticulous work involving smaller, more refined tools, gradually perfecting surfaces, diligently checking dimensions, and scrupulously testing the fit with neighboring blocks. The final, exquisite finishing stage could consume days of patient labor, meticulously removing all tool marks, creating impeccably smooth surfaces, and achieving the unparalleled precision that permitted blocks to interlock seamlessly without the need for mortar. Diverse building projects inherently mandated distinct approaches to stonework. Foundation blocks, above all else, required superlative strength. They had to withstand immense loads without succumbing to cracking or settling. These crucial pieces were frequently left unrefined on sides that would not be visible, with all attention concentrated on the load-bearing surfaces, which had to be perfectly flat and true. Wall blocks necessitated scrupulous attention to their outer faces, which would be conspicuously visible in the completed edifice, though their inner surfaces could be finished with slightly less precision. Column drums, however, demanded the most exacting precision of all, given that any minute irregularities would be significantly magnified as the column majestically ascended. The scale of the undertaking becomes increasingly pronounced as the vertical elements of the structure ascend, demanding even greater precision and effort from the artisans involved. The journey of these meticulously prepared blocks from their extraction points in the quarry to their final placement at the building site introduces a distinct set of formidable challenges. Certain individual pieces of stone can tip the scales at multiple tons, necessitating their careful transit across rugged, unforgiving mountain trails through methods that prioritize astute patience and clever ingenuity over brute force alone. Ingenious arrangements involving robust wooden rollers, intricate networks of rope systems, and the precise, synchronized efforts of dedicated worker teams enable these colossal stones to be conveyed securely across distances that, at first glance, appear utterly insurmountable. This demanding labor is fraught with inherent perils. A single misstep or the unexpected movement of a block could lead to catastrophic injury or even death for anyone caught in its trajectory. Nevertheless, seasoned crews, through years of collective experience, cultivate an instinctive rhythm and a highly effective communication protocol that significantly diminishes such grave occupational hazards. Upon arrival at the designated construction locale, the skilled stonecutters engage in a close and continuous collaboration with the master builders, diligently executing the ultimate refinements necessary to guarantee an impeccable union, even after the most meticulous initial measurements and precise templating have been performed. Minor alterations are frequently indispensable. For instance, a particular block might necessitate a subtle trimming to precisely conform to the inherent irregularities of the stone elements situated beneath it, or its surfaces could demand supplementary polishing to ensure an optimally flush and stable contact. This intricate process of on-site customization demands the full spectrum of proficiencies acquired during quarry operations, augmented by the distinct complexity of navigating and coordinating with a multitude of other specialized craftsmen. These might include carpenters actively constructing elaborate roof frameworks, sculptors meticulously shaping intricate decorative motifs, and painters assiduously preparing surfaces destined for embellishment. The instruments wielded by the stonecutter, while appearing straightforward, are remarkably efficacious, each meticulously conceived for distinct facets of their demanding craft. Substantial sledgehammers are deployed for the initial, coarse fracturing of raw stone. Intermediate-sized hammers facilitate the broader shaping and contouring, and diminutive hammers are reserved for the most intricate and delicate detailing. An array of chisels, varying in their blade widths, are pressed into service for diverse incising and carving endeavors, alongside sturdy wooden wedges utilized for cleaving stone, and specialized implements forged from bronze and iron for a multitude of cutting applications. Precision is rigorously upheld through the deployment of essential calibration apparatuses such as straight edges, right angles, vertical plumb lines, and horizontal levels. It is imperative that every single implement undergoes scrupulous upkeep, ensuring it remains keenly sharpened and in impeccable working order, for any dull or compromised tool renders the execution of exact and flawless work utterly unattainable. The corporeal exigencies inherent in the art of stone-cutting are truly colossal. This arduous occupation necessitates not only formidable physical strength and enduring stamina, but also an unwavering capacity for focused concentration, even when assailed by profound exhaustion, oppressive heat, biting cold, and the incessant percussive din of hammers striking stone. The hands of individuals like Demetrios bear indelible marks, permanently etched with a mosaic of minor lacerations and splintered fragments. His posture is stooped, a consequence of countless years spent toiling over ponderous blocks, and his auditory faculties are undeniably diminished, a direct result of decades enduring the relentless clamor of his implements. Yet, beyond these visible tolls, he also holds an asset that defies quantification, an innate, almost visceral comprehension of the very essence of stone, coupled with the extraordinary faculty to envision within unhewn quarry blocks the majestic, completed edifices they are destined to become. Arguably, the singularly most astonishing characteristic of antique stonemasonry resides in its profound resilience and enduring robustness. Architectural marvels erected by master artisans akin to Demetrios have steadfastly persisted through millennia, triumphing over the demise of the very civilizations that brought them into being, remaining resolute while various empires have ascended and subsequently crumbled around their ancient foundations. This exceptional temporal endurance is by no means a fortuitous happenstance. Rather, it springs directly from an unwavering dedication to meticulous precision and exhaustive scrutiny applied to every conceivable particularity throughout the entire construction methodology. Encompassing the initial discernment of raw materials, extending through the exacting precision of their shaping, and culminating in the sophisticated methods employed for seamlessly interlocking individual blocks, the venerable stonecutters of Delphi dedicate their prodigious skills not solely to the construction of magnificent temples and prominent public edifices. Their expertise is equally vital for fabricating the indispensable practical infrastructure that ensures the sanctuary's seamless operation. Robust retaining walls meticulously engineered to stabilize precarious mountainside earth, intricate drainage networks designed to safely divert rainwater away from precious structures, durable steps and winding pathways facilitating secure passage for pilgrims traversing the arduous topography, secure storage facilities for sacred offerings and essential provisions, and comfortable habitations for the resident priests and laborers. Every single aspect of this diverse construction portfolio demands an identical degree of scrupulous attention to both the chosen materials and the applied techniques, as do the renowned, iconic temples. Notwithstanding the fact that a substantial portion of this foundational work often escapes the notice of the casual visitor. The inherent seasonal cycles governing construction endeavors dictate that stonecutters frequently enjoy several months during each winter period to engage in alternative pursuits. A portion of these skilled artisans embark on journeys to disparate construction locations, strategically tracing the progression of the building season across the expansive Mediterranean region. Other individuals judiciously allocate this interval to the arduous tasks of quarrying and amassing a substantial reserve of raw materials, ensuring ample provisions for the ensuing year's undertakings. Still others dedicate their precious time to the meticulous instruction of apprentices, thereby transmitting the invaluable corpus of knowledge and specialized proficiencies that guarantee the unbroken lineage and perpetuation of their ancient craft. These tranquil, less active months hold comparable significance to the bustling construction season itself, affording crucial opportunities for the meticulous upkeep of tools, comprehensive project planning, and the profound kind of introspective contemplation that invariably fosters advancements and refinements in technical methodology. The profound spiritual import of Delphi bestows an entirely distinct and elevated dimension upon the endeavors of the stonecutters. These artisans possess a deep-seated comprehension that their meticulous craft contributes not merely to the erection of structures, but to something far more monumental than conventional construction. They are, in essence, fashioning hallowed environments where mortals can forge a profound communion with the divine, where the prescient pronouncements of the revered oracle will resonate through countless future generations, and where devout pilgrims will discover invaluable spiritual counsel and profound personal revitalization. This overarching sacred objective imbues even the most quotidian and repetitive tasks with extraordinary purpose, transforming the arduous, patient labor of shaping and precisely joining stone into an act akin to devout prayer, a tangible and reverent offering presented to the deities who safeguard this sanctified locale. As the sun dips below the horizon, Demetrios concludes his daily toil and commences the meticulous cleaning of his implements. His gaze naturally ascends towards the majestic temple gradually ascending above him. Every single block integrated into those towering walls has, in its journey, been handled by hands remarkably similar to his own, painstakingly sculpted by tools analogous to those he wields, and meticulously set into its designated position through the deliberate and patient deployment of proficiencies honed and transmitted across countless generations. With the advent of a new dawn, he will once more embark upon the shaping of another block, and then another, conscientiously contributing his individual effort to an architectural undertaking destined to endure for many centuries beyond his own mortal lifespan. Within the profound obscurity preceding the dawn in venerable Athens, while the vast majority of the urban populace remains enveloped in slumber, Thalia conscientiously ignites the nascent flames within the capacious stone oven of her bustling bakery. The vital labor of nourishing an entire community commences many hours prior to anyone contemplating their morning repast, unfolding in those serene moments when adept bakers transmute unassuming components, namely flour, water, salt, and the enigmatic, potent influence of indigenous yeast into the very bread that fundamentally upholds existence itself. Her skilled hands execute their tasks with the assured dexterity born of 3 decades of dedicated practice, meticulously constructing the blaze that will thoroughly imbue the oven's substantial walls with heat, thereby making ready for yet another day dedicated to that venerable alchemy which skillfully converts humble grain into indispensable nourishment. This particular establishment, dedicated to the art of baking, occupies a prominent position at the intersection of 2 habitually bustling thoroughfares, strategically situated to cater comprehensively to the quotidian requirements of the surrounding residential district. Throughout the daylight hours, its interior will resonate with the lively presence of patrons, animated discussions, and the vivacious, yet somewhat disorderly energy of commercial exchange. However, during these preceding hours of dawn, the space is exclusively Thalia's domain, governed by the serene, measured cadences of her specialized vocation. She meticulously inspects the dough, which has undergone its transformative ascent throughout the preceding night, discerning its optimal preparedness with a delicate, knowing caress that imparts to her every crucial detail concerning the precise timing, the ambient warmth, and that enigmatic, vital essence without which the creation of bread would be utterly unfeasible. The fundamental genesis of crafting bread lies in a profound comprehension of grain itself. Specifically, the varieties of wheat, barley, and sundry other cereals that diligent farmers, much like those pioneering Greek agriculturalists, mastered the art of cultivating millennia in the past. Distinct varieties of grain inherently yield disparate gustatory profiles and textural qualities, and truly accomplished bakers possess the erudition to expertly blend these for achieving precisely desired outcomes. Flour derived from wheat, for instance, typically engenders the creation of delicate, ethereal loaves frequently favored for celebratory events. Conversely, barley yields a more compact, overtly nourishing bread that effectively assuages hunger and furnishes sustained vitality. Breads incorporating a mélange of different grains present intricate taste sensations and offer the pragmatic benefit of utilizing whichever cereals are readily procurable at economical rates. The transformative process of pulverizing grain into flour represents a fundamental nexus, linking each individual loaf directly to the expansive agricultural cycle that originates in far-flung fields. Thalia assiduously cultivates and sustains connections with a selection of nearby mills, possessing an acute awareness that the inherent excellence of the flour unequivocally dictates the ultimate standard of the completed bread. She is capable of discerning, solely through tactile sensation and olfactory perception, whether a batch of flour is genuinely fresh, milled to the appropriate consistency, and entirely devoid of the extraneous impurities that dishonest purveyors occasionally introduce to inflate their monetary gains. Superior flour, she knows, exhibits a smooth consistency and a subtle warmth to the touch, emanates a sweet and unadulterated aroma, yields a dough that is consistently manageable, and ultimately bakes into a bread possessing exemplary taste and structural integrity. Water, acknowledged as the second indispensable component, might superficially appear to be a straightforward element. However, experienced bakers are keenly aware that disparate aqueous origins invariably yield distinct outcomes. The specific mineral composition, the ambient temperature, and the overall purity of the water collectively exert a significant influence on the pliability of the dough, the vigorous proliferation of the yeast culture, and ultimately, the final gustatory profile of the baked bread. Thalia procures her water from a specific wellspring, widely celebrated for its unwavering excellence, and she has, through diligent practice, mastered the art of calibrating her baking methodologies to account for the fluctuating seasonal changes in both temperature and mineral concentration. During the colder months of winter, the chilled water necessitates an extended period of kneading to adequately foster the development of the requisite gluten framework. Conversely, in the warmth of summer, she occasionally incorporates ice into her mixture to meticulously regulate the dough's temperature, thereby averting its excessive warming during the crucial mixing phase. Salt, far from being a mere seasoning agent, fulfills a multitude of crucial functions within the intricate process of bread production. Transcending its primary role in imparting taste, it fundamentally fortifies the gluten network, thereby assisting the dough in maintaining its integrity and desired form throughout both the leavening and baking stages. Furthermore, it judiciously moderates the metabolic activity of the yeast, effectively impeding the bread from undergoing an excessively rapid rise that could result in an undesirable coarse texture. Additionally, it functions as an inherent preserving agent, consequently prolonging the bread's optimal freshness and utility. The precise quantity of salt incorporated demands rigorous oversight. An insufficient amount will render the bread insipid and structurally fragile. Conversely, an excessive addition will impede the vital action of the yeast and impart an unpalatable, overly saline taste. Yet, the most enigmatic and perhaps pivotal component remains yeast itself, that remarkable microscopic living organism responsible for the profound metamorphosis of compact, heavy dough into the delectable, ethereal bread we cherish. During Thalia's era, long before the advent of commercially produced yeast, skilled bakers diligently nurtured and sustained what were known as mother starters, concoctions meticulously prepared from flour and water, specifically designed to ensnare naturally occurring wild yeasts from the ambient atmosphere, thereby furnishing the indispensable leavening potency for each day's fresh bread. These precious starters demand unwavering daily vigilance, including consistent replenishment with fresh flour and water, alongside scrupulous regulation of their thermal environment to ensure the yeast remains robust and vigorously active. A truly exceptional starter possesses the capacity to persist for extended durations, spanning years and even several decades, frequently being bequeathed through successive generations, much like an invaluable familial heirloom. The venerable craft of baking, a rich legacy passed down through successive generations, is often cherished like an invaluable family treasure. The intricate processes of amalgamation and manipulation of the dough represent the pivotal juncture where the artisan baker's profound expertise culminates. Insufficient amalgamation, conversely, prevents the constituents from fully integrating, leading to a final product characterized by an undesirable consistency and an irregular interior structure. Conversely, an excessive duration of manipulation can catastrophically degrade the delicate gluten matrix, invariably yielding loaves that are unpleasantly compact and ponderous. Thalia, through years of dedicated practice, has cultivated an innate ability to discern the dough's optimal state purely through tactile assessment. A perfectly matured dough exhibits a remarkably supple and resilient nature, readily yielding to extension and molding with an almost prescient pliability. Furthermore, this vigorous manipulation actively infuses atmospheric gases into the mixture, establishing the foundational internal architecture upon which the yeast will subsequently act, facilitating its volumetric expansion during the crucial fermentation stage. The phase of rising, commonly referred to as fermentation, arguably constitutes the most exacting and patience-demanding element of bread-making. The artisan baker is thus tasked with meticulously cultivating the ideal ambient conditions, sufficiently temperate to stimulate robust yeast proliferation, yet not excessively heated to precipitate a premature or uncontrolled fermentative burst. Adequately moist to avert the formation of an undesirable epidermal layer, though not so saturated as to render the dough unduly adhesive and recalcitrant. Thalia, through her extensive practical experience, has refined an almost innate perception for these subtle environmental nuances, adeptly calibrating the duration of proofing and thermal exposure in direct response to prevailing atmospheric conditions, cyclical climatic shifts, and the unique physiognomy of every individual dough preparation. The intricate process of molding dough into distinct loaf forms demands a delicate fusion of precise technical proficiency and an inherent artistic flair. Each particular configuration is meticulously designed to fulfill a specific functional or aesthetic objective. Elongated baguettes, for instance, offer an expansive surface area of crisp, caramelized crust, highly prized by connoisseurs who savor the robust, resilient chew of a perfectly baked exterior. Spherical boules, conversely, facilitate a more uniform thermal distribution during baking and exhibit a superior capacity for prolonged freshness, while diminutive, singular rolls present an ideal and practical solution for patrons desiring individual portions. Consequently, every unique form necessitates its own specialized manipulation methods, specific proofing durations, and tailored oven settings. Thalia derives immense satisfaction from crafting loaves that transcend mere nutritional and gustatory excellence, aspiring to visual magnificence, deeply comprehending the profound truth that human appreciation begins with ocular perception before culminating in culinary enjoyment. The ultimate proofing stage, occurring subsequent to the meticulous shaping, holds paramount importance for the attainment of the desired internal structure and mouthfeel in the completed bread. Loaves that have not undergone sufficient fermentation will inevitably exhibit a compact and ponderous consistency, whereas dough allowed to over-ferment risks an unfortunate collapse within the oven, leading to a fragmented internal matrix and a severely compromised volumetric expansion. Thalia employs a repertoire of diagnostic techniques to ascertain optimal readiness, including a delicate tactile assessment where she observes the dough's elastic recoil upon gentle indentation, a keen visual inspection for subtle indications of vigorous fermentation on the surface, and a precise temporal calibration derived from her extensive experiential knowledge with analogous environmental factors. Such a refined discernment is cultivated exclusively through protracted periods of dedicated application and an unflagging commitment to meticulously analyzing outcomes. The act of baking itself necessitates an intimate comprehension of the idiosyncratic thermal dynamics of the colossal stone oven, a monumental fixture that commands the central space of the bakery. These venerable ovens are brought to temperature by igniting substantial conflagrations directly within their cavernous baking chambers, subsequent to which the glowing embers and accumulated ash are meticulously cleared away. Once the substantial stone masonry has amassed a sufficient thermal reservoir to accommodate numerous successive batches of bread, the latent heat emanating from these radiant surfaces gently and uniformly imbues the loaves with warmth, thereby engendering the robust, resilient crusts and the succulent, yielding interiors that are the hallmark of authentic hearth-baked provisions. The precise regulation of the oven's formidable temperature and the strategic, expeditious placement of loaves within its depths demand a sophisticated skill set, the acquisition of which typically spans many years of dedicated apprenticeship and practice. The chronological progression of baking operations is dictated by a meticulously formulated scheme designed to extract the utmost utility from the oven's diminishing thermal energy. Initially, during its peak thermal intensity, the oven is dedicated to robust, substantial breads, necessitating vigorous heat for the optimal development of their characteristic, crisp crusts. As the internal temperature gradually recedes, an array of more sensitive culinary creations are introduced. Enriched sweetbreads, delicate pastries, and other confections susceptible to scorching under the initial, fierce thermal conditions. Ultimately, the lingering, gentle warmth is ingeniously repurposed for ancillary tasks, such as desiccating aromatic herbs, gently reheating pre-prepared victuals, or facilitating any other processes that thrive in a mild, sustained thermal environment. In a meticulously operated artisanal bakery, absolutely no thermal energy is permitted to dissipate without purpose. The profound societal significance of the local bakery transcends its primary function of merely supplying staple bread. Instead, it flourishes as a vibrant communal nexus, a cherished forum where local residents congregate to disseminate current affairs, engage in spirited discourse regarding civic happenings, and assiduously cultivate the intricate web of social bonds that fundamentally coalesce a neighborhood. Patrons, over time, forge enduring personal relationships with their dedicated bakers, acquiring the nuanced skill of synchronizing their visits with the precise moments their preferred varieties emerge from the oven, placing implicit faith in the artisan's discerning appraisal of superior quality and peak freshness, and relying steadfastly upon the bakery as an indispensable and trustworthy fount of daily nourishment. Thalia possesses an intimate awareness of her clientele's diverse preferences, meticulously tailoring her production schedule and offerings to meet these specific demands. She is acutely aware, for instance, that Marcos, the diligent potter, favors a substantial, nutrient-rich barley bread, specifically chosen for its capacity to provide enduring sustenance throughout his arduous, lengthy shifts at the potter's wheel. Whereas Helena, the meticulous weaver, expresses a distinct partiality for delicate wheat rolls, which she finds less likely to induce somnolence during her intricate and demanding craft. Younger patrons, the children, invariably gravitate towards sweeter confections infused with golden honey and crunchy nuts, while her more venerable customers consistently request exceptionally soft loaves designed for ease of mastication. This profound, individualized understanding of her community's needs empowers her to cater to them with a level of efficacy and personal touch that no expansive, mass-production commercial enterprise could ever hope to emulate. The paramount economic significance of bread within ancient societal structures elevates artisans such as Thalia to roles imbued with substantial civic responsibility. Bread, far from being a mere indulgence, constitutes an absolute exigency, forming the fundamental dietary bedrock for the vast majority of the populace, particularly during periods marked by scarcity of grain or volatile market pricing. Consequently, bakers are perpetually tasked with deftly equilibrating the imperative requirements of their clientele against the exigencies of their own commercial viability. It is not uncommon for them to proffer lines of credit to their reliable patrons during periods of economic hardship, operating under the sagacious principle that the cultivation and preservation of communal bonds far outweigh the pursuit of transient financial gains. The cyclical fluctuations in the accessibility and inherent characteristics of grains infuse the baker's daily endeavors with an enduring intellectual stimulation and a persistent set of challenges. Freshly gathered grain harvests introduce novel flavor profiles and enhanced baking properties, yet concurrently demand precise modifications in processing methodologies. Conversely, more mature grain might necessitate altered hydration ratios or extended mixing durations to achieve optimal results. Atmospheric conditions exert their influence not only upon the foundational raw ingredients, but also profoundly impact the entire baking milieu. Days marked by elevated humidity, for instance, mandate modifications in proofing schedules, whereas frigid ambient temperatures might compel significant alterations in the strategic operation of the oven. A truly adept artisan baker cultivates the wisdom to harmoniously integrate these naturally occurring variations into their craft, rather than engaging in a futile struggle against their immutable presence. Furthermore, the rich tapestry of religious observances and established cultural customs significantly shapes and directs the baker's intricate craft. Specific celebratory feast days, for example, invariably call for distinctive breads, meticulously fashioned into time-honored shapes and incorporating particular symbolic ingredients. Nuptial festivities, in their joyous exuberance, demand intricately adorned loaves, serving as potent symbols of future prosperity and abundant fertility. Conversely, somber funeral assemblages necessitate unadorned, hearty breads, befitting the gravity and solemnity of such occasions. Thalia diligently safeguards and perpetuates the ancestral recipes and specialized methodologies for each of these unique requirements, deeply comprehending that her vocation encompasses not merely the provision of quotidian nourishment, but also the vital preservation of cherished cultural heritage. As the early morning hours gracefully unfold and her loyal, habitual clientele start to converge upon the bakery in anticipation of their essential daily bread, Thalia experiences a profound sense of contentment, a deep satisfaction that is the natural byproduct of a demanding task meticulously executed. The golden brown loaves, gently relinquishing their heat upon the rustic wooden cooling racks, embody countless hours of assiduous concentration. The distillation of years of painstakingly acquired expertise and the enduring legacy of wisdom transmitted across successive generations within the venerable guild of bakers. Every single loaf, in its unassuming perfection, is destined to provide vital sustenance to a household, to fuel the multifarious endeavors of the day, and to furnish the indispensable caloric energy that underpins the robust operation of the entire community. With the advent of a new dawn, she will recommence her venerable vocation, facing fresh batches of dough, embracing novel challenges, and seizing renewed opportunities to further hone the ancient, transformative craft that elevates humble constituents into the very staff of human existence. Mirroring the indispensable role of artisans such as Thalia, who diligently provided their communities with essential daily sustenance, the dedicated messengers and swift runners of ancient Greece likewise fostered and maintained the crucial communicative arteries linking disparate locales through their unwavering, steadfast service. Philippus, with a practiced motion, settles the sturdy leather satchel suspended across his shoulder and embarks from the illustrious city of Athens precisely as the first blush of dawn paints the slopes of Mount Pentelicus, commencing yet another arduous expedition destined to convey vital dispatches, personal correspondence, and authoritative governmental decrees across the rugged, undulating terrain that geographically delineates one sovereign city-state from another. His intended destination for this particular arduous undertaking is the venerable city of Corinth. An estimated 2 days of persistent, unflagging locomotion, traversing routes that vary considerably, at times consisting of meticulously laid stone paving, at other junctures mere earthen tracks, and occasionally devolving into barely discernible trails winding through untamed wilderness. The demanding existence of a professional courier necessitates an exceptional confluence of unwavering physical fortitude, comprehensive topographical expertise, and highly developed interpersonal acumen, a rare amalgamation of attributes possessed by only a select few. Philippus, for example, must possess the requisite stamina to traverse distances of 20 to 30 miles daily on foot, burdened not solely by the weight of his dispatches, but also by the essential provisions required for expeditions spanning multiple days. He is obligated to possess an encyclopedic familiarity with the intricate network of roadways, the dependable way stations offering respite, and the various seasonal perils that could potentially impede safe passage. Moreover, his character must inspire such profound confidence that municipal authorities, shrewd merchants, and private individuals alike unhesitatingly consign to his care highly sensitive communications, documents of significant value, and pressing intelligence that directly impacts their economic well-being and, on occasion, their very survival. The rigorous apprenticeship for a courier commences in early youth, wherein boys exhibiting a natural aptitude for swift locomotion are progressively acclimated to traversing greater distances and navigating increasingly formidable geographical features. The nascent Philippus initiated his career by ferrying missives across the labyrinthine districts of Athens, thereby internalizing the metropolis's intricate urban topography, progressively cultivating the muscular endurance essential for sustained pedestrian travel, and refining the consistent rhythmic stride that enables a runner to optimize distance covered while judiciously conserving personal energy. Upon demonstrating unwavering dependability on these shorter excursions, he was progressively entrusted with more extensive commissions, ultimately ascending to the demanding intercity itineraries that constituted the veritable neural pathways of ancient Greek communication infrastructure. The very thoroughfares themselves bear silent witness to an epic narrative spanning centuries of incremental enhancement and strategic proliferation. Certain arteries trace the contours of primordial pathways, etched deep by the ceaseless passage of innumerable generations of wayfarers. Pastoralists guiding their herds to verdant seasonal grazing lands, merchants transporting diverse commodities between bustling marketplaces, devout pilgrims journeying to hallowed sanctuaries, and formidable armies maneuvering across contested domains. Conversely, other routes represent more contemporary feats of engineering, meticulously surfaced with robust stone blocks and strategically designed to afford the most expeditious conduits connecting vital urban centers. Nevertheless, even the most impeccably constructed highways demand perpetual upkeep, and couriers, through necessity and experience, develop an acute proficiency in circumventing perils such as erosional breaches, sudden rockfalls, and the unpredictable inundations of seasonal deluges, all of which possess the capacity to render established itineraries momentarily impassable. The challenging topography of Greece rendered long-distance communication particularly arduous. Formidable mountain ranges frequently bifurcated valleys that, while seemingly proximate as the bird flies, necessitated hours of strenuous climbing for any traveler to traverse on foot. Conversely, coastal pathways, though offering an alternative to drastic elevation shifts, introduced their own distinct perils. Tempestuous weather could render shoreline routes treacherous. Seasonal inundations transformed rivers into impassable torrents requiring hazardous fording, and stretches of sheer precipices plunging directly into the azure sea offered no viable space for any overland passage. Philippus, a seasoned courier, possessed an intricate mental cartography of the entire Hellenic expanse, a repository of knowledge meticulously amassed over countless years of arduous travel and keen observation. He unerringly identified dependable hydric veins, discerned between hospitable hamlets and those wary of unfamiliar faces, and intuitively understood which high-altitude passes remained accessible latest into the colder months and opened earliest with the advent of spring. This invaluable intelligence could never be gleaned from mere scrolls or written charts. It was the sole product of direct, lived experience, the patient and meticulous accumulation of nuanced details that only veteran itinerants could leverage to ensure secure and efficient journeys. The dispatches entrusted to his care constituted the very lifeblood of ancient Greek civilization. These included official communiques between autonomous city-states, conveying crucial reports on intricate diplomatic negotiations, strategic military maneuvers, vital trade agreements, and the myriad other administrative intricacies demanding synchronized action across independent communities. Commercial correspondence between enterprising merchants facilitated logistical arrangements for shipments, complex price negotiations, and the indispensable sharing of market intelligence from distant urban centers. Lastly, intimate missives exchanged between family members, dear friends, and professional associates served to preserve personal relationships across the significant geographical distances separating Hellenic communities. The inviolability of these messages remained a perpetual preoccupation, for information held immense intrinsic value, and individuals would undertake considerable efforts to intercept communications that might yield them commercial or political leverage. Philippus, through extensive practical experience, had mastered sophisticated methodologies for safeguarding the integrity of his messages. These included cryptographic systems designed to obscure sensitive data, the strategic dispatch of multiple copies via divergent routes to ensure at least one successful delivery, and specific recognition signals enabling him to authenticate the identity of the intended recipients. The most critically sensitive messages, however, were committed solely to memory rather than inscribed, a practice demanding messengers of unparalleled mnemonic capacity and absolute trustworthiness. Weather patterns presented an unceasing series of challenges, necessitating constant adaptability and astute judgment from the courier. The advent of spring brought saturating mire that could render thoroughfares nearly impassable, while the scorching thermal intensity of summer posed a significant risk to anyone attempting long-distance travel during the zenith of the day. Autumnal tempests frequently triggered sudden riverine inundations, capable of washing out bridges with minimal forewarning. Winter's frigid white blankets inevitably sealed off mountain defiles and transformed high-altitude routes into treacherous or utterly impassable passages. Experienced messengers cultivated a profound meteorological acumen, learning to interpret subtle atmospheric cues and adjusting their demanding schedules accordingly, sometimes prudently delaying their journeys for days until conditions ameliorated rather than risking perilous transit. The relentless physical demands inherent in constant travel necessitated meticulous attention to nutrition, hydration, and periods of essential repose. Philippus consistently carried a selection of dried provisions specifically chosen for their resilience against spoilage during multi-day expeditions. Hard-baked loaves, desiccated fruits, oleaginous kernels, and aged cheeses that improved with time rather than decaying. He possessed an encyclopedic knowledge of every reliable potable water source along his established routes, and prudently carried portable aqueous reservoirs for those stretches where natural springs were scarce. Slumber often meant camping al fresco beneath the vast expanse of the stars, wrapped in a simple cloak, relying on a combination of fortune and vigilant attentiveness for protection against both feral creatures and malevolent human elements. Yet this demanding occupation also offered singular gratifications unmatched by most other professions of the ancient era. Professional messengers experienced an unparalleled panoramic insight into the world, encountering a kaleidoscopic diversity of landscapes, societal customs, and ways of life that thrived within the expansive Greek sphere. They consequently developed a broader, more nuanced perspective on unfolding events, comprehending how localized developments seamlessly integrated into larger regional patterns and discerning connections between disparate communities that might remain entirely obscured to individuals confined to a single locale. This profound empirical knowledge elevated them to esteemed founts of intelligence and counsel, making them respected constituents within the communities they dutifully served. Indeed, The sociological dimensions of the messenger's work were often as significant as the corporeal exertions. Messengers frequently functioned as informal news networks, conveying not merely official pronouncements, but also the ubiquitous currents of gossip, rumors, and general intelligence that facilitated communities' vital connection with the wider world. They brought tidings of upcoming festivals and jubilant celebrations, delivered reports concerning bountiful or meager harvests, and disseminated information about significant political developments that could profoundly influence trade or travel. This pervasive informal communication network played an indispensable role in cultivating the pervasive sense of shared culture that inextricably bound the Greek world together, notwithstanding its inherent political atomization. Cultivating robust relationships with innkeepers, stable owners, and other purveyors of services to itinerants was absolutely paramount for successful messenger operations. These invaluable bonds were forged over years of unwavering probity, punctual fiscal transactions, and reciprocal esteem. A messenger who meticulously cultivated a reputation for equitable dealings and engaging conversation would invariably discover that doors opened more readily, vital intelligence flowed more freely, and expeditious assistance was readily available whenever emergencies inevitably arose. Conversely, messengers who abused hospitality or proved unreliable quickly found themselves ostracized from the very establishments upon which they critically depended for the successful completion of their designated routes. The ingenious development of relay systems permitted messages to traverse distances with a celerity unattainable by any single courier. Instead of one individual undertaking an entire journey, dispatches were sequentially transferred between runners strategically positioned at regular intervals, thereby enabling fresh messengers to maintain optimal velocity over segmented courses. These sophisticated systems demanded meticulous orchestration and unfailing dependability from all participants, as a breakdown at any single juncture would irrevocably disrupt the entire chain. Nevertheless, when operating flawlessly, relay systems provided an unrivaled rapidity for urgent dispatches, surpassing any other contemporaneous communication method in the ancient world. Navigational prowess became an almost innate faculty for experienced messengers, who learned to orient themselves using the celestial bodies, the sun by day, the stars by night, alongside prominent topographical markers and subtle environmental cues that eloquently indicated direction and location. The critical ability to maintain an unwavering course during crepuscular hours, amidst shrouding mists, or across unfamiliar terrains, could spell the definitive difference between a successful delivery and perilous, costly delays. These indispensable skills were cultivated incrementally through assiduous scrutiny and the kind of profound attunement to natural signs that ancient peoples developed out of sheer necessity for survival and successful transit. The profound economic importance of reliable communication ensured that professional messengers enjoyed not only stable engagement, but also considerable public esteem. Despite the inherent physical rigors of their demanding profession, merchants depended implicitly on them for up-to-the-minute market intelligence. Governments relied on their services for critical diplomatic and administrative exchanges, and individuals entrusted them with personal messages vital for maintaining familial and social relationships across expansive distances. This pervasive societal dependence created a robust sense of occupational stability, yet it also imposed a profound burden of accountability, as any failure in communication could precipitate serious and far-reaching consequences for all parties involved. As Philippus reached the halfway point of his arduous journey to Corinth and paused for a moment of repose at a familiar inn, he reflected on the pivotal function his work played in sustaining the intricate connections that inextricably bound Greek civilization together. Each message he carried represented an interwoven strand in the complex tapestry of political, commercial, and personal relationships, a delicate yet robust web that enabled widely scattered communities to function effectively as a coherent and unified culture. Tomorrow, he would culminate this current mission and commence his homeward expedition to Athens, bearing new dispatches that would perpetuate the endless circulation of intelligence, ceaselessly reinforcing the interconnectedness of the antique realm. What other diligent custodians patiently maintained the foundational infrastructure that allowed ancient Greek civilization to flourish across such vast distances? While messengers like Philippus tirelessly conveyed words across great spatial expanses, the revered scribes of ancient Greece meticulously preserved words across immense spans of time. In a small, unadorned chamber beneath the bustling Athenian agora, Lysander carefully dipped his reed pen into precisely prepared ink, resuming his meticulous transcription of the legal code destined to govern his illustrious city for countless generations. Each individual letter demanded flawless orthography, every word impeccable spelling, and each line judicious spacing. A single error within these foundational legal documents could subtly distort meanings, inadvertently create problematic lacunae, or even nullify critically important stipulations. The work demanded unwavering focus, boundless fortitude, and a profound veneration for the inscribed utterance that few within this predominantly vocal society could fully comprehend. The preservation of laws in a written format represented one of humanity's most monumental achievements, though it has become so ubiquitously integrated into contemporary existence that its profound importance is rarely contemplated. Prior to the advent of writing, laws existed solely as ephemeral mnemonic constructs, transmitted through generational oral traditions by revered judges and elders. However, human memory is inherently susceptible to error. Interpretations inevitably evolved over time, and contentious disputes frequently arose concerning the precise wording and intent of the law. Codified written law, conversely, provided enduring equilibrium, unwavering uniformity, and the authoritative textual recourse necessary for resolving questions with absolute clarity. With the descent of twilight, as Lysander brings to conclusion yet another segment of the statutory compendium upon which he has been diligently engaged, he feels the quiet satisfaction that comes from work that serves something larger than immediate needs. The words he's preserved today will guide legal decisions, protect citizen rights, and maintain social order long after he's forgotten. His careful attention to detail, his patient commitment to accuracy, and his understanding of the broader importance of written law all contribute to the foundation of civilized society. Tomorrow he'll begin another section, continuing the endless but essential work of preserving human knowledge in permanent form. Lysander, a dedicated scribe, acquired his profound professional expertise in the time-honored manner, dedicating numerous years as a protégé to seasoned mentors. These master calligraphers imparted to him not merely the mechanical proficiencies of inscription, but also the profound obligations inherent in safeguarding crucial records for posterity. His rigorous instruction commenced with the meticulous preparation of all necessary writing requisites. This involved the precise shaping of reed pens to achieve the optimal point and pliancy. The careful concoction of pigments, designed to endure the passage of ages with undiminished clarity, and the meticulous conditioning of vellum and sheets of papyrus to ensure a clean acceptance of ink and to preserve their structural integrity over extended durations. The corporeal exertions demanded by scribal work, while distinct from those encountered by heralds or artisans, are nonetheless equally arduous and taxing. Prolonged periods spent stooping over his scriptorium inevitably lead to persistent musculoskeletal ailments in the spinal column and cervical region. The minute textual elaboration inherently taxes ocular faculties, a challenge exacerbated when toiling under the flickering illumination of a lucerne or taper. Furthermore, the monotonous manual gestures involved in continuous writing can precipitate discomfort and pain in the upper limbs and digits. Yet perhaps the most formidable challenge resides in the unwavering mental acuity required for sustained concentration. A fleeting lapse in focus, even for a solitary moment, possesses the potential to inadvertently embed inaccuracies, which in turn necessitate the complete recomposition of substantial passages, a costly and time-consuming rectification. The vast compendium of legal instruments that Lysander meticulously transcribes encompasses the full spectrum of societal existence. This includes statutes pertaining to commerce that meticulously regulate covenants, mercantile pacts, and the tenure of estates, penal codes that precisely delineate transgressions and their corresponding retributions, foundational charters that ordain the mechanisms of state governance and the entitlements of the populace, and executive directives that span the gamut from quotidian marketplace transactions to grand sacred observances, ensuring the smooth functioning of public life. Each distinct category of document mandates specific presentational schemas, varying degrees of granularity in its exposition, and divergent methodologies for structuring and interlinking textual elements. A profound comprehension of the subject matter significantly enhances Lysander's efficacy as a calligrapher, enabling him to discern potential inaccuracies that may have insidiously permeated original texts, and to uphold semantic uniformity across jurisprudential lexicon. His vast erudition in the legislative framework of Athens has been acquired not via structured juridical pedagogy, but through the meticulous and arduous undertaking of transcribing myriad statutory clauses, discerning the intricate interconnections among disparate legislative acts, and witnessing the practical application of legal tenets across a myriad of scenarios. The fundamental substrates utilized for juridical texts must conform to the most exacting benchmarks of resilience and perpetual integrity. While sheets fashioned from the stalks of Egyptian papyrus plants offer superior substrates for inscription, they regrettably suffer comparatively swift degradation in humid environments. Conversely, vellum, meticulously crafted from select animal hides, entails a greater expenditure, yet exhibits markedly superior longevity and resilience against physical wear and tear. For records of supreme import, scribes are compelled to employ the most exquisite vellum procurable, processed through specialized methodologies designed to amplify its enduring quality and fortify its resistance to discoloration, fissuring, or other manifestations of decay. The very pigments themselves pose distinct obstacles, as inappropriately composed tinctures risk evanescence, bleeding, or even corrosive erosion of the substrate over extended periods. The optimal indelible pigments for enduring records are meticulously compounded concoctions of finely pulverized soot and adhesive vehicles that are designed to permeate the fibrous structure of the substrate, rather than merely resting superficially upon it. These specialized inks must be prepared anew with consistent periodicity, as they will inevitably accrete viscosity and prove recalcitrant to manipulation if allowed to languish for excessive durations. Indeed, the alchemical creation of superior ink constitutes an artisanal mastery unto itself, demanding an intricate understanding of chemical principles, the science of materials, and the precise exigencies dictated by various categories of documents. The act of inscription itself adheres to prescribed methodologies meticulously designed to mitigate inaccuracies and guarantee uniformity in the final product. Initially, Lysander assiduously peruses the original text, pinpointing any latent ambiguities or obscure sections necessitating elucidation prior to commencing transcription. Subsequently, he devises the typographical schema for the nascent document, carefully apportioning the requisite spatial dimensions for individual divisions, determining the optimal junctures for pagination, and orchestrating the textual disposition to optimize legibility and practical juridical utility for its eventual users. The literal act of transcription unfolds in distinct phases, featuring inherent mechanisms for the detection and rectification of inaccuracies at each juncture. The initial stage involves the creation of a preliminary rendition, wherein the foremost objective centers on faithfully reproducing the entire corpus of information, with less emphasis on impeccable typographic arrangement. This provisional text subsequently undergoes meticulous scrutiny, being collated verbatim against the original manuscript and amended where requisite. Solely thereafter does the labor commence on the definitive edition, which is mandated to conform to the most exalted criteria of visual clarity, structural presentation, and aesthetic integrity. Juridical instruments demand exacting diligence in their structural articulation and systematic arrangement to render them readily amenable to pragmatic consultation. Interconnected stipulations necessitate coherent categorization, delineated by perspicuous rubrics and subordinate captions that facilitate swift retrieval of precise data by readers. Intersectional citations are imperative to be both unimpeachable and elucidative, guiding the user through the document's complexities. Crucial terminological explications and fundamental tenets require conspicuous emphasis or strategic placement for effortless discovery. All of this demands not merely calligraphic dexterity, but also astute editorial discernment and an intuitive grasp of the document's ultimate practical application. The custodianship and long-term safeguarding of finalized juridical texts present perpetual exigencies that transcend the confines of the initial transcription endeavor. Documents must be vigilantly shielded against humidity, entomological infestation, murine depredation, conflagration, and inadvertent human oversight. Furthermore, they need to be systematized in a manner permitting prompt identification and retrieval of particular entries upon demand. They also necessitate recurrent examination and upkeep to detect signs of degradation ere they escalate to critical levels. Most importantly, they must be replicated at regular intervals to generate pristine editions prior to the originals suffering irreparable damage that renders them illegible, thus ensuring the continuity of legal knowledge. The profound societal significance attributable to unimpeachable juridical documentation means that calligraphers such as Lysander are vested with roles of immense confidence and profound accountability. The populace, mercantile classes, and state functionaries rely implicitly upon these legal instruments for the safeguarding of their prerogatives. the arbitration of disagreements, and illumination amidst intricate predicaments. Inaccuracies introduced during the transcription of legal texts can precipitate grave repercussions, potentially nullifying contractual agreements, engendering unjustifiable benefits for certain litigants, or precluding the definitive ascertainment of statutory mandates in particular contexts. The professional milieu of juridical calligraphers mirrors the gravity of their occupation. Lysander's scriptorium is meticulously fashioned to furnish superlative circumstances for intricate labor, providing ample illumination, salubrious thermoregulation, and sanctuary from auditory disturbances and intrusive distractions. The appointments are strategically configured to foster ergonomic alignment and alleviate physiological duress, ensuring the scribe's comfort during long hours. The scriptorial planes themselves are calibrated to the precise elevation and inclination for optimal working posture. Archival apparatuses maintain materials in an orderly and readily retrievable state. Indeed, every element is orchestrated to foster precision, efficacy, and the perpetuation of invaluable instruments. Concerted effort among fellow calligraphers proves indispensable for monumental undertakings, such as exhaustive statutory compilations or expansive governmental registers. Disparate copyists may concurrently engage with discrete segments, demanding meticulous synchronization to guarantee uniformity in typographical presentation, lexical usage, and intertextual citations. Periodic convocations enable scribes to deliberate upon challenges, disseminate efficacious remedies, and uphold the exalted benchmarks mandated for juridical instruments. Furthermore, this cooperative methodology furnishes crucial safeguards against idiosyncratic mistakes, as numerous individuals meticulously examine each document prior to its definitive sanction. The cognitive demands inherent in juridical transcription transcend simple verbatim reproduction, encompassing hermeneutics, systematic structuring, and discerning editorial discretion. Jurisprudential parlance frequently incorporates specialized nomenclature, intricate syntactic constructions, and allusions to antecedent records or foundational legal tenets. Calligraphers are incumbent upon comprehending these intricacies with sufficient profundity to identify instances of logical incoherence, erroneous intertextual citations, or presentational decisions that could engender perplexity for subsequent patrons of the documents. This intellectual engagement elevates the scribe from a mere copyist to a guardian of legal clarity. The tutelage of nascent calligraphers mandates not solely the impartation of mechanical proficiencies, but also the inculcation of the dispositional qualities and occupational routines indispensable for juridical transcription. Meticulousness, fortitude in the face of monotonous tasks, a profound sense of exactitude, and an appreciation for the overarching societal import of their endeavors are all attributes requiring cultivation through practical engagement and sagacious guidance. Seasoned calligraphers such as Lysander approach this pedagogical obligation with utmost gravity, cognizant that the probity of forthcoming legal archives hinges directly upon the thoroughness with which they equip their protégés. The pecuniary dimensions of calligraphic labor underscore the profound esteem society accords to unimpeachable juridical annals. Practitioners of the scribal arts are remunerated handsomely, enjoy consistent occupation, and garner public veneration. The very requisites they employ, superior vellum, indelible pigments, bespoke implements, constitute substantial communal outlays, willingly undertaken given the paramount necessity of possessing dependable legal instruments. This financial underpinning empowers calligraphers to prioritize meticulousness over expeditiousness, thereby yielding records destined to benefit their polities for successive epochs. The annals of history chronicle the preservation of human knowledge in myriad permanent forms, beyond the venerable scribes, such as Lysander, who meticulously safeguarded the intricate legal frameworks governing ancient Greek society. Other diligent custodians of understanding played a pivotal role in upholding the foundational intellectual tenets of that distinguished civilization. In parallel to the preservation of statutes, the dedicated salt gatherers of the Aegean littoral diligently secured the vital foodstuffs that nourished and sustained the populace. Theodorus, a figure emblematic of these ancient laborers, gracefully enters the shallow, sun-drenched lagoons hugging the coast near Marathon. He experiences the invigorating warmth of the brine as it gently laps against his legs, signaling the commencement of yet another day dedicated to extracting what was, in antiquity, an exceedingly precious commodity. While contemporary inhabitants might perceive salt as an ordinary and largely unremarkable substance, in the ancient world, its intrinsic value was literally commensurate with that of silver. It stood as an indispensable element for the preservation of sustenance. The meticulous curing of leather hides and a multitude of other critical industrial processes that collectively underpinned the very possibility of a sophisticated, civilized existence. The intricate endeavor of extracting salt from seawater demands an exceptional confluence of unwavering patience, precise timing, and an intimate, almost intuitive comprehension of localized environmental conditions. An expertise that typically requires many years of dedicated observation and practical application to fully cultivate. Theodorus, through generations of inherited wisdom and personal experience, has mastered the subtle, often imperceptible, environmental indicators that signal optimal conditions for bountiful salt production. This includes discerning the precise synergy of atmospheric temperature, ambient humidity levels, prevailing wind patterns, and the rhythmic ebb and flow of tidal cycles, all of which coalesce to forge the ideal milieu for natural evaporation. An overabundance of rainfall, for instance, would invariably dilute the nascent brine, rendering it unsuitable. Conversely, insufficient solar intensity would drastically impede the evaporative process, slowing the crystallization. Furthermore, an excessive gusting of wind has the potential to scatter and dissipate the nascent, precious crystals before they can be effectively collected. The extensive salt flats where Theodorus dedicates his labor are not merely fortuitous natural phenomena, but rather meticulously engineered and carefully constructed systems of interconnected shallow ponds and intricate channels. These sophisticated hydrological networks have been assiduously maintained and refined by successive generations of salt gatherers, each contributing to their enduring efficacy. Every individual pond within this complex is precisely leveled with exacting accuracy to guarantee a uniform depth of water across its entire expanse. Their bases are meticulously lined with clay, a crucial measure to prevent any undesirable seepage of the valuable brine into the underlying soil. Strategically placed, wooden gates regulate the precise flow of water between the various, distinct sections of the system, optimizing the concentration process. Furthermore, the vital channels responsible for conveying fresh seawater into this elaborate system are subjected to regular and thorough cleaning. This preventive maintenance is essential to avert any obstruction caused by accumulating sand, intrusive seaweed, or miscellaneous debris that might be swept in from deeper waters during periods of inclement weather. The early hours of the morning present the most propitious window for the diligent inspection of the salt ponds. At this time, the ambient air remains refreshingly cool, and the cumulative evaporation from the preceding night has sufficiently concentrated the brine to its ideal strength. Theodorus, moving with a deliberate and practiced slowness through the shallow water, employs a long, specialized wooden rake. He carefully probes the bottom of each pond, listening intently for the distinctive telltale crunch of salt crystals forming on the clay surface. This auditory cue is singularly unique, clearly distinguishable from the soft, yielding squelch of mud or the abrasive scrape of shells and stones. Upon identifying a pond ripe for harvesting, he precisely marks its location with a simple wooden stake, ensuring he can return later with the appropriate tools for extraction. The act of harvesting salt transcends mere manual labor, elevating itself to a precise art form. The delicate crystals must be gathered at the exact, optimal juncture in their formation. To attempt collection prematurely would result in crystals that are still too diminutive and inextricably mingled with undesirable impurities. Conversely, to delay the harvest for too long risks the crystals beginning to redissolve back into the brine, a catastrophic loss. Theodorus skillfully wields a specialized implement, ingeniously designed as a hybrid of a rake and a scoop. This tool features closely spaced wooden tines, meticulously calibrated to permit the efficient drainage of excess water while simultaneously capturing the precious salt crystals. Each careful scoop must be executed with utmost precision to avoid disturbing the underlying sediment at the bottom of the pond, an oversight that would inevitably contaminate the pristine white salt with unsightly mud and extraneous debris. Once harvested, the salt is carefully gathered into robust woven baskets, each meticulously lined with a fine cloth. This ingenious design facilitates the natural drainage of any residual brine, allowing it to seep away while effectively retaining the valuable crystals within. These laden baskets are then thoughtfully positioned upon sturdy wooden platforms, strategically elevated above the water level. This arrangement leverages the omnipresent force of gravity, allowing it to perform the majority of the crucial work involved in separating the liquid components from the solid crystalline mass. The entire process, from initial brine concentration to final drying, cannot be expedited without compromising the integrity of the product. Any attempt to forcefully squeeze or press the salt in an effort to accelerate water removal would inevitably crush the delicate crystal structures, thereby significantly diminishing the overall quality of the final product. Instead, Theodorus meticulously arranges the baskets in a specific, deliberate pattern. This precise configuration is designed to maximize ambient air circulation around and through the crystals, simultaneously optimizing drainage and encouraging a gradual, natural drying process that preserves the salt's inherent purity and crystalline form. Stringent quality control measures are absolutely indispensable in the realm of salt production, primarily because varying grades of salt are destined for distinct purposes and consequently command differing market prices. The most exquisite, pristine white crystals, entirely devoid of any discoloration or foreign particulate matter, are meticulously reserved for the critical tasks of food preservation and culinary seasoning. These premium crystals are typically sold to affluent households, discerning professional cooks, and astute merchants specializing in luxury goods. Conversely, lower grades of salt, which might permissibly contain traces of sand or organic material, are perfectly adequate and eminently suitable for industrial applications such as curing leather, dyeing various fabrics, or other manufacturing processes where sheer quantity and utility are more critical considerations than absolute purity. The commercial enterprise of salt gathering extends far beyond the physical exertions of harvesting, demanding meticulous attention to fluctuating market conditions and the cultivation of robust customer relationships. Theodorus diligently maintains vital connections with merchants responsible for transporting salt to distant inland cities, with food preservers who rely on consistent supplies for their businesses, and with affluent households that prioritize and value the unwavering quality of his product. These enduring relationships are meticulously forged over many years, built upon a bedrock of reliable delivery, scrupulous honesty in all dealings, and an impeccable reputation for consistently producing salt that precisely meets the diverse and specific requirements of each individual customer. The capricious nature of the weather presents perpetual challenges, necessitating both remarkable flexibility and astute long-term planning from the salt gatherer. A mere week of sustained heavy rainfall can utterly devastate an entire batch of developing salt, compelling the gatherer to drain the affected ponds and recommence the arduous process entirely from scratch with fresh seawater. Violent storms possess the destructive potential to inflict significant damage upon the meticulously maintained pond structures, thereby mandating immediate repairs to prevent the catastrophic loss of concentrated brine, a loss that represents weeks of diligent, patient labor. Furthermore, protracted periods of overcast weather significantly impede the crucial evaporation process, leading to an accumulating backlog of partially developed salt that must be managed with extreme care to prevent spoilage and ensure its eventual viability. The inherent seasonal rhythms governing salt production dictate that the overwhelming majority of the year's harvest must be completed during the arid summer months. This period is characterized by the highest rates of evaporation and the lowest incidence of rainfall, creating optimal conditions for crystallization. Consequently, these months are marked by intense, unceasing activity, which is then succeeded by quieter periods, during which attention shifts to essential maintenance, necessary repairs, and thorough preparation for the ensuing season. Throughout the winter, Theodorus dedicates his time to repairing and enhancing his intricate pond systems, engaging in crucial negotiations for contracts with customers for the upcoming year, and diligently processing the substantial quantities of stored salt from the preceding summer harvests, carefully sorting it into various grades and preparing it for packaging. The specialized tools and essential equipment employed in the ancient craft of salt gathering are not merely implements, but rather extensions of the gatherer's skill, demanding the same meticulous care bestowed upon the salt ponds themselves. Wooden tools, for instance, are regularly treated with specific oils, carefully chosen to inhibit rot and decay, without imparting any contaminating elements to the delicate salt. Metal components are vigilantly safeguarded against rust, which would inevitably discolor the pristine final product. Woven baskets are assiduously repaired, or if necessary, replaced before any wear or damage creates holes that would allow the precious salt to escape. Even the seemingly simple cloth linings warrant careful consideration and maintenance. Different weaves offer varying drainage rates, and any dyes or chemical treatments, however innocuous they may appear, could potentially alter the taste or visual appeal of the refined salt. The profound body of knowledge requisite for successful salt production encompasses an intricate understanding of chemistry, meteorology, and engineering, a comprehensive expertise that stands in rival to any other sophisticated ancient craft. Salt gatherers must grasp the nuanced principles governing how various dissolved minerals crystallize at distinct concentrations, comprehend the precise influence of atmospheric pressure on evaporation rates, and possess the capability to design, construct, and meticulously maintain complex hydraulic systems that precisely regulate water flow through multiple interconnected ponds. This invaluable knowledge, a cornerstone of their livelihood, is typically transmitted across generations within families or through rigorous apprenticeship systems, meticulously preserving both the indispensable practical techniques and the underlying theoretical understanding. The economic dimensions of the salt trade unequivocally underscore the essential nature of this commodity within ancient society. Salt gathering provides a consistent and reliable source of income throughout the productive season, often presenting opportunities for securing premium prices when supply is constrained by adverse weather conditions or other unforeseen factors. While the undertaking necessitates a significant initial investment in the construction of ponds and the acquisition of specialized equipment, these substantial costs are typically recouped over many years of sustained production. Crucially, the demand for salt remains unwavering and entirely predictable. It is a universal necessity, and for the vast majority of its myriad applications, there exist no effective or viable substitutes. The inherent competition among neighboring salt gatherers, while fostering a drive for innovation and continuous quality improvement, simultaneously cultivates a spirit of cooperative relationships that are indispensable for the communal sharing of knowledge and vital resources. While gatherers in close proximity might vie for the most advantageous customers and highest possible prices, they also routinely exchange critical information regarding prevailing weather patterns, evolving market conditions, and technical advancements that ultimately benefit every participant in the industry. During periods of crisis, such as major storms or significant equipment malfunctions, these competitors readily transform into collaborators, offering lending tools, sharing temporary workspace, or providing much-needed labor to assist one another in maintaining essential production. The social standing accorded to salt gatherers reflects the undeniable importance of their vital product, while simultaneously acknowledging the inherent physical demands and economic uncertainties that characterize their demanding work. They are universally respected as highly skilled craftsmen who provide an absolutely essential service to their communities. However, they typically do not achieve significant wealth or exert substantial influence in broader political or cultural spheres. Their primary social connections are forged with other individuals deeply entrenched in the realms of food production and preservation. Farmers, bakers, merchants, and householders who possess a profound, practical understanding of the critical importance of having reliable access to consistently high-quality salt. As the afternoon progresses and the sun ascends to its zenith, Theodoras meticulously concludes his morning rounds. He then embarks upon the careful, methodical process of transporting the day's harvested salt to designated storage areas. There, under the continued influence of natural elements, it will undergo further drying before its eventual packaging for sale. The warm, newly gathered crystals shimmer and sparkle with an almost ethereal brilliance, resembling countless tiny diamonds under the intense sunlight. Each individual crystal represents not only hours of patient labor, but also a profound, careful attention to the timeless natural processes that have unfolded in precisely the same manner for uncounted generations. His unwavering, methodical approach to this venerable craft plays an instrumental role in preserving the essential foods that sustain his community, all while meticulously upholding the ancient traditions that inextricably link him to the countless generations of salt gatherers who have toiled in these very same coastal waters, who diligently plied their trade within the confines of these very same coastal waters. Yet, beyond the maritime endeavors, what other fundamental vocations were instrumental in enabling the ancient Greeks to transmute raw natural resources into the essential commodities that underpinned a sophisticated way of life? While the salt gatherers, exemplified by individuals such as Theodoros, harmonized their labor with the inexorable rhythms of the sea and its adjacent shoreline, the pastoralists of Arcadia structured their existence around the more deliberate, profound cadences of the rugged mountains and verdant pastures. Aristomos, a seasoned shepherd, meticulously guides his cherished flock along time-honored trails, which gracefully meander through ancient groves of venerable oak trees and expansive meadows abundantly strewn with vibrant wildflowers, faithfully adhering to routes that have been traversed and utilized by countless preceding generations of his pastoral lineage. The majestic mountains of Arcadia ascend in a series of gentle, undulating swells towards the boundless sky, their slopes generously blanketed with a diverse array of nourishing grasses and aromatic herbs, renowned for yielding the sweetest milk and the most exquisite wool throughout the entirety of Greece. The demanding occupation of shepherding amidst these formidable mountains necessitates a profound and intricate comprehension of the terrain, extending far beyond the rudimentary awareness of merely where sustenance for the flock might be found. Aristomos possesses the innate ability to decipher impending meteorological shifts by observing the distinctive formations of clouds as they gather around particular peaks, to anticipate the forthcoming availability of vital water sources by discerning the subtle variations in the coloration of vegetation within distant valleys, and to precisely pinpoint secure havens that will effectively safeguard his vulnerable flock from the sudden onset of tempestuous storms or the menacing presence of predatory wildlife. This invaluable repository of knowledge has been meticulously transmitted through the generations of his family, continuously refined and enhanced by centuries of direct experience and astute observation, culminating in a comprehensive and nuanced understanding of how to cooperatively engage with natural systems rather than attempting to exert dominion over them. The sheep themselves are far from the domesticated, placid creatures commonly encountered on contemporary agricultural estates. Instead, they are robust, discerning animals, exceptionally adapted to the rigors of mountain existence. They have developed an acute sensitivity to Aristomos's distinct signals, a specific, piercing whistle that unequivocally communicates the command to ascend uphill, a precise hand gesture that unequivocally indicates the necessity to remain closely congregated, and a subtle alteration in his walking pace that serves as an unambiguous warning of potential perils lurking ahead. The profound relationship between this shepherd and his flock is firmly rooted in a foundation of mutual comprehension and unwavering trust, painstakingly cultivated over numerous years of shared trials and tribulations within challenging and often unforgiving environments, where collective cooperation stands as an indispensable prerequisite for survival. With the progression of each annual cycle, a distinct set of formidable challenges and promising opportunities emerges, each demanding meticulous foresight and remarkably adaptable responses from the diligent shepherd. The advent of spring signifies the crucial task of guiding the flock to elevated pastures as the accumulated snow melts away and fresh, tender grasses begin their resurgence. However, this period also entails the arduous navigation of treacherous, muddy trails, the perilous crossing of swollen, turbulent streams, and the intensive birthing season, a time when the ewes require an unparalleled degree of specialized attention and diligent protection. Summer, in its turn, bestows the most luxuriant grazing opportunities, yet simultaneously introduces the significant perils of protracted drought, oppressive heat, and the heightened activity of predators, which become more audacious and numerous when their natural food sources are abundant. As autumn descends, the imperative becomes preparing the flock for the impending harshness of winter by assiduously building up their physical condition, while concurrently initiating a gradual migration to lower, more sheltered, and protected grazing territories. The quotidian rhythm of shepherding adheres to established patterns that are simultaneously foreseeable and yet perpetually subject to unforeseen variations. The early hours of the morning are dedicated to meticulously inspecting each individual animal for any discernible indicators of infirmity or injury, diligently counting the entire flock to ensure that no member has strayed or become separated during the preceding night, and astutely evaluating the prevailing meteorological conditions to formulate the day's strategic movements. The flock then embarks on its unhurried journey across the expansive landscape, punctuated by frequent necessary pauses for grazing, hydration at available water sources, and periods of essential rest. The afternoon typically ushers in the most intense temperatures, prompting the sheep to instinctively seek refuge in the shade. While Aristomos judiciously utilizes this quiescent interlude for essential tasks, such as the meticulous repair of worn equipment, the careful inspection of vital supply caches, or the proactive reconnaissance of potential routes for the subsequent day's extensive journey. Navigating the intricate and often perilous mountain terrain demands a sophisticated repertoire of skills, seamlessly blending extensive practical knowledge with an intuitive grasp of animal behavior and the inherent workings of natural systems. Aristomos possesses the remarkable ability to interpret the landscape as if it were an intricately detailed map, assiduously noting prominent geographical landmarks, subtle seasonal transformations, and nuanced environmental cues that unerringly indicate the most advantageous routes under diverse conditions. He is intimately aware of which pathways become utterly impassable following torrential downpours, which specific areas are inherently susceptible to perilous rock slides, and precisely which meadows offer the most abundant and nutritious grazing opportunities at varying times throughout the year. This comprehensive mental cartography is ceaselessly updated and refined based on his continuous new observations and the ever-fluctuating environmental circumstances. The specialized implements and accoutrements utilized in the arduous practice of mountain shepherding are scrupulously chosen for their inherent robustness, multifaceted utility, and ease of transport. Aristomos invariably carries a sturdy staff, a versatile instrument that fulfills a multitude of critical functions. It serves as an indispensable aid for traversing the challenging terrain, a practical tool for gently guiding his sheep, a formidable defensive weapon for warding off potential predators, and even a rudimentary measuring device for accurately assessing the depth of flowing streams or accumulated snowdrifts. His protective cloak, expertly woven from resilient wool, consistently provides invaluable warmth even when saturated and offers steadfast protection against the relentless mountain winds and the intense glare of the sun. Water vessels, essential food provisions, and various repair materials are all selected with paramount consideration for their optimal weight-to-utility ratio and their proven capacity to withstand the rigors of rough handling within demanding and unforgiving environments. The intricate art of predator management necessitates unwavering vigilance and the deployment of a diverse array of strategic approaches that meticulously balance the imperative protection of the flock with a profound reverence for the delicate natural ecosystem. Apex predators such as formidable wolves, powerful bears, and stealthy large felines all present significant potential menaces, yet smaller predators, including cunning foxes, also pose a considerable threat, often targeting vulnerable young lambs or infirm animals. Aristomos judiciously employs specially trained guard dogs, bred and conditioned specifically for the arduous demands of mountain work. But he also systematically implements a range of supplementary techniques. These include the strategic positioning of the flock in less exposed areas, the careful timing of movements through particularly vulnerable zones, and the ingenious construction of temporary barriers, ingeniously utilizing natural topographical features or readily portable materials. The intricate social dimensions of shepherding encompass the vital process of cultivating and sustaining robust connections with fellow herders, surrounding local communities, and the expansive network of individuals engaged in the broader production chains of wool and dairy. Shepherds proactively exchange critical intelligence concerning grazing conditions, prevailing weather patterns, recent predator activity, and current market prices through well-established informal networks that effectively span the entire geographical region. They meticulously coordinate their flock movements to assiduously avoid the detrimental effects of overgrazing in specific areas and consistently offer mutual assistance and solidarity during unforeseen emergencies or particularly arduous conditions. These invaluable relationships are assiduously maintained through regular convocations at time-honored traditional gathering locales, participation in vibrant seasonal festivals, and the deeply ingrained tradition of hospitality that shepherds generously extend to weary travelers venturing through remote and isolated territories. The meticulous management of breeding programs demands extensive long-term foresight and the diligent maintenance of detailed records, all meticulously designed to guarantee the enduring health and optimal productivity of the flock across multiple successive generations. Aristomos assiduously traces individual bloodlines, vigilantly monitors the efficacy of breeding successes, and renders judicious decisions regarding which animals to retain for future breeding, which to offer for sale, and which to judiciously exchange with other herders to strategically introduce novel genetic material. These pivotal decisions are predicated upon a complex interplay of crucial factors, including the inherent quality of the wool, the overall milk yield, the animal's natural resistance to disease, and their intrinsic adaptability to the demanding conditions of the mountains, qualities that frequently may not become fully discernible until the animals have attained their full maturity. Seasonal festivities and solemn religious observances furnish invaluable opportunities for shepherds to congregate, to engage in the crucial exchange of pertinent information, and to diligently uphold the rich tapestry of cultural traditions that intimately link them to their profound historical and spiritual legacy. The veneration of Pan, the revered goat-footed deity of shepherds and untamed wilderness, incorporates ancient rituals that explicitly acknowledge the fundamental dependence of human communities upon the intricate balance of natural systems and the inherent responsibility that accompanies the dedicated care of domesticated animals within wild and untamed environments. These deeply meaningful observances serve to powerfully reinforce the ethical imperatives intrinsic to the practice of shepherding and provide essential spiritual sustenance for contending with the often profound isolation and the manifold hardships inherent in a life lived amidst the mountains. The intricate economic facets of shepherding encompass a multiplicity of diverse income streams, each demanding distinct categories of specialized knowledge and a keen awareness of prevailing market dynamics. Revenue derived from wool sales is contingent upon factors such as the inherent quality of the fleece, the opportune timing of its sale, and the cultivation of strong relationships with processors who transform raw fibers into valuable finished goods. The production of dairy items, including artisanal cheese and fresh milk, necessitates a thorough understanding of advanced food preservation techniques, efficient transportation logistics, and evolving customer preferences. Sales of live animals involve a discerning evaluation of breeding stock, the assessment of meat quality, and an acute awareness of market demand, which itself fluctuates both seasonally and regionally. Consequently, truly successful shepherds must possess a comprehensive understanding of all these disparate markets and strategically align their management practices accordingly. Acute weather monitoring and robust response capabilities constitute indispensable skills that can fundamentally determine the trajectory between prosperity and utter devastation. In the demanding realm of mountain shepherding, Aristomos has painstakingly cultivated the ability to interpret subtle, often imperceptible signs that reliably portend shifts in meteorological conditions. The nuanced behavior of wild creatures, the distinct appearance of particular cloud formations, and the precise direction and intensity of winds that carry moisture from distant seas. This profound, acquired knowledge empowers him to proactively guide his flock to safety well in advance of impending storms, to locate secure shelter during periods of extreme weather, and to judiciously capitalize on propitious conditions for vital activities such as shearing or breeding. The comprehensive instruction of nascent shepherds involves not merely the didactic transmission of technical proficiencies, but critically, the profound inculcation of the specific attitudes and character attributes that are absolutely essential for thriving in the unforgiving mountain environment. Qualities such as unwavering patience, resolute self-reliance, meticulous observation, and a deep reverence for the integrity of natural systems must all be painstakingly developed through extensive hands-on experience and dedicated mentorship. Equally paramount are robust physical conditioning, unyielding mental fortitude, and the crucial capacity to render sound judgments under intense pressure. Venerated master shepherds like Aristomos undertake this profound responsibility with utmost solemnity, keenly aware that the enduring traditions and invaluable knowledge they impart will ultimately dictate the prosperity and survival of generations yet to come. The judicious conservation and sustainable utilization of mountain pastures demand a sophisticated understanding of ecological principles that contemporary environmentalists are only now beginning to fully appreciate and integrate. Shepherds, through countless centuries of lived experience, have painstakingly acquired the wisdom of how to meticulously manage grazing pressure, effectively prevent deleterious erosion, diligently maintain the rich biodiversity of plant life, and expertly collaborate with natural succession processes to ensure the sustained productivity of pastures across numerous generations. Their time-honored practices encompass carefully controlled burning, the strategic timing of grazing rotations, and the conscientious protection of ecologically sensitive areas during particularly vulnerable periods, such as prolonged droughts or bouts of extreme meteorological conditions. Beyond the immediate challenges presented by events such as persistent drought or unpredictable extreme weather patterns, the very essence of shepherding unfolds into profound philosophical dimensions. This ancient practice inherently invites a sustained contemplation of humanity's intricate relationship with the natural world, probing deeply into the profound meaning of stewardship, and rigorously examining the core values that ought to direct human interaction with all other sentient and non-sentient living beings. The profound tranquility and breathtaking natural splendor inherent in elevated mountain environments afford unparalleled opportunities for introspective reflection, a luxury seldom found in more densely inhabited regions. Consequently, many individuals dedicated to this pastoral calling cultivate an exceptionally deep and nuanced appreciation for the intricate complexity and fundamental interdependence of natural systems, simultaneously fostering a genuine sense of humility concerning humanity's true position within the vast and interconnected web of life. As the golden hues of evening begin to paint the majestic landscape, Aristomos, with practiced ease, guides his diligent flock towards a carefully chosen, sheltered meadow where they are destined to repose for the duration of the night. A profound sense of accomplishment washes over him, a deep satisfaction derived from another day meticulously spent in successful stewardship within one of the planet's most aesthetically stunning yet unforgivingly challenging environments. The sheep, exhibiting their innate wisdom, gracefully transition into their familiar evening routine. A final period of contented grazing, gentle social interactions amongst themselves, and a gradual, unhurried preparation for a night of restorative rest. Simultaneously, their dedicated shepherd methodically constructs his Spartan camp, preparing himself for a night of vigilant slumber beneath a canopy of stars that blaze with an extraordinary, almost ethereal brilliance in the crisp, unblemished mountain air. His unwavering patience and consummate skill in caring for these vital animals are instrumental in sustaining the vibrant communities nestled in the valleys far below, simultaneously upholding venerable ancient traditions that forge an unbreakable link between him and countless generations of shepherds who, throughout history, discovered profound meaning and unwavering purpose in this undeniably demanding yet immensely gratifying way of life. The harmonious symphony of sounds, the soft bleating of settling sheep, the haunting calls of distant night birds, and the whispering rustle of wind through the ancient trees weaves a timeless lullaby, a melody that has resonated through these venerable mountains for millennia. It carries with it an intrinsic peace and the immutable, timeless rhythms that are the natural consequence of living in profound and respectful harmony with the boundless natural world. The provided input, consisting solely of the fragment HRLD, presents an inherent challenge to the task of comprehensive paraphrasing. an extensive reinterpretation, replete with expanded thoughts, illustrative examples, and a rich tapestry of synonyms and varied grammatical structures, necessitates a complete and coherent original text. Without a substantive source, the foundational elements required for such an elaborate linguistic transformation, namely, a discernible main idea, a structured sequence of thoughts, and specific factual or terminological content, are conspicuously absent. Consequently, the meticulous process of maintaining an original length, preserving paragraphing, and ensuring tonal and factual consistency cannot be effectively undertaken. To proceed with the intended detailed and engaging paraphrase, a complete and well-formed passage from which to draw is indispensable.